Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening, another old legendary battle pet warrior added coldly. He eyed Suking as if the latter were a dead man walking. He had to confess that Suking's strength was amazing. That being said, he could not be forgiven after he had humiliated them. Even worse, Suking was not at the legendary rank and still he acted so boldly. If and when he was at the legendary rank, wouldn't he make all of them kneel before him? My entire family? Suking turned to see that old man. The darkness in his otherwise emotionless eyes could swallow the light. Unlike Kenjuang and Mu Beihai and the other family heads, he didn't have an extended family. He just had his parents and his younger sister. They meant the world to him. Old dog, why don't you go ahead and try that? Suking gazed at him. Agitated, the old man screamed, "What did you just say? I am more than enough to be your great-grandpa." "Then you are an old dog that has been living longer than necessary," Suking replied coldly. Courting death. That old legendary battle pet warrior stood up and unleashed his rich astral powers. He, too, was close to the peak of the ocean state, like Legend Abyssal Ocean. Boom. Boom. 2 swirls appeared behind him and from them crawled out 2 barbaric beast kings. The huge beast kings startled even the titled rank servants. They became sick with worry, afraid that they could get hurt in the upcoming fight. When legendary battle pet warriors fought, they would be like puny insects that could be stomped to death. "Take this!" the old man shouted. He had to fight or he would be losing his dignity after Suking had insulted him in public. Suking killed Legend Abyssal Ocean, but the old man was sure that it had happened because of the latter being caught off guard. On the contrary, the old man was ready to go all out. The 2 beast kings landed on the ground and roared as they dashed towards Suking. Suking eyed them indifferently. A swirl appeared behind him as well. He summoned the Dark Dragon Hound. "Kill them," Suking ordered. The look in the Dark Dragon Hound's eyes turned violet. It began to use skills that belonged to the Heaven Expansion Dragons as it made its way to the 2 beast kings. Soon after, the Dark Dragon Hound pinned one of the Beast Kings to the ground. The latter began to worry. The other Beast King arrived and distracted the Dark Dragon Hound from the side. The Dark Dragon Hound had no other choice but to fight the 2 Beast Kings at the same time. Suking didn't worry. He was familiar with Beast Kings and those 2 were just so-so. He was able to tell that the Dark Dragon Hound was more than capable of containing both of them. It was just a matter of time. Suking looked into the crowd and found Legend North King. "North King!" he shouted. Yes. Since the old man had begun to fight, Legend North King didn't join because that would reflect poorly on him. "During the Supremacy League, you told me that you were looking for legendary battle pet warriors who had yet to register. You told me that the deep caves needed them. Now, answer this question. What are you doing here?" Legend North King sulked. "We don't need to answer any of your questions." "Is that so?" Suking went on, "When tens of millions of people were waiting for those honorable legendary battle pet warriors to come and save them, what were you doing? Could you not spare half a day? How dare you?" The other legendary battle pet warrior jumped in. "How can you compare the lives of tens of millions to the lives of legendary battle pet warriors? Can one of them become a legendary battle pet warrior? You must know that the odds of reaching the legendary rank are really small. Do you honestly think that we should take risks just for the sake of some ordinary people?" Suking could not even believe that statement. All of a sudden, the coldness and anger disappeared in his eyes. "So, this is how you're doing the calculation," he whispered to himself and laughed. "Don't waste time. Prepare to die." The old man stood up straighter, feathers grew on his arms and scales on his face. It was evident that he had merged with his pet. The merger increased his strength to the peak of the ocean state. Suking's laughing stopped. "Go to hell!" he cried. Boom. The air behind him twisted and the sunlight was swallowed by the many demons and fiends that were appearing in his force field. Many vicious and hellish figures had begun to emerge in that darkness. Force field. In the meantime, a small swirl appeared as well. A white object dashed out, white bones grew out on Suking's skin in the next second. Su Ping clenched his fist and punched at the old man that was dashing toward him. In the distance, some legendary battle pet warriors at the void state shouted in fright the moment that Su Ping was covered by the white bones. God no. All of them could sense the danger and killing intent coming out from Su Ping. Chapter 522 Shatter the Heavens. Stop. A legendary battle pet warrior at the void state stood up. He pushed the air across the distance to hinder Su Ping and save the old man. Boom! The surging air crushed Su Ping like a falling mountain, but that overwhelming surge of air was soon disrupted by the force surrounding Su Ping. He threw a punch at the old man with his bone-covered hand, which was as glaring as the sun. The old man stared with eyes wide open. There was nothing left in the world for him to see. Nothing except for the approaching golden fist. The punch had yet to land on him, but the wind that had been stirred up was enough to blow away his soul. No, no way. The old man shuddered in fear. He was no longer that agitated man, only a scared man remained. He couldn't even begin to imagine how such strength could be wielded by a puny human being who wasn't even at the legendary rank. Defense. In that critical moment, the only thing he could think of was to save his life. He instantly set up many defensive barriers and armors. The most noticeable of them all was a virtual image of a golden toad. It was a legendary skill that could not only withstand physical attacks, but also energy attacks and poisons. That was the skill which allowed him to have his way even during fierce battles. Su Ping's hand bumped into the virtual toad. The toad's head caved in all of a sudden, before it reached its limit and then exploded. Boom. Su Ping's hand was still pressing forward. The many other barriers and armors behind the virtual toad gave in and cracked, one by one. Some strange barriers came out when his hand was about to land on the old man's chest, and then more virtual figures appeared to protect the old man from the strike. And yet, the virtual figures lasted for less than 0.1 seconds before they broke and Su Ping cleanly landed a punch on the old man's chest. The old man arched his back. His eyes popped out, making the fear and surprise in his eyes even more prominent. I couldn't stop the punch even after using all of my defensive skills? He had brought out all the armors and barriers he had collected over the years. Any one of them was sturdy enough to fend the strike from a void state being. Bang! Like a balloon, the legendary ranked old man burst open, turning into a mist of blood in the air. The wind blew the mist away as soon as the blood mist came into being. Only scattered objects remained. Some with better sight could already see that those things were the old man's fingers, teeth, knees, and other body parts. That old man was punched to death even while being fully prepared. The legendary battle pet warriors who had at first viewed Su Ping with contempt were frightened at the moment, appalled, even. Were we wrong about Su Ping or are we just having a nightmare? Could this guy be, in fact, a legendary battle pet warrior? Legend North King was the most startled of all. He had met Su Ping at the Supremacy League where the latter had already demonstrated his ability to defeat legendary battle pet warriors. But he didn't think much of it because that old man of the King family was a loser who merely had one Beast King. He wasn't nearly as good as the old man who had just passed away. It was also important to consider that Su Ping's fight at the Supremacy League had not been as easy as at that time. One punch. That day, with one punch, Su Ping had finished that old legendary battle pet warrior. Legend North King was able to tell that Su Ping's punch was even more threatening than before. This young man has grown up too fast, too fast. Ah! A titled battle pet warrior screamed because a broken hand had fallen into his arms. Some teeth still tainted with blood fell onto the heads of another one, scaring the wits out of him. When the old legendary battle pet warrior died, the pet he had merged with died as well. As such, the pet's body parts came down along with the rain of remains. The two beast kings that the Dark Dragon Hound had been battling against came to a brief stop as the contract broke. Taking that chance, the Dark Dragon Hound snapped the neck of one of the beast kings and then pounced onto the other one, finishing the latter quickly. Soon, the two beast kings were lying in a pool of blood. The pungent smell of blood pervaded the air. No one said anything. The legendary battle pet warriors eyed Su Ping with astonishment. They had just been angry when Su Ping killed Legend of Dissolution without warning. Angry because Su Ping had dared to harm a legendary battle pet warrior. But at the moment, anger had given way to panic. In a face-to-face battle, Su Ping had still been able to kill a legendary battle pet warrior within one move, and they didn't have to check to know that Su Ping had merged with his pet. Is Su Ping not at the legendary rank? Of course, he is. However, the young man must have used some secret ways to fool their perception and hide his strength. That was the only plausible explanation because their perception told him that Su Ping was at the 7th rank according to their perception. It was ridiculous. Zi Jinshui and Qin Zhuang stared at Su Ping in disbelief. They both knew that he had defeated the other world Heavenly King, but they weren't there to see with their own eyes. They didn't know that Su Ping's strength had developed to such a state. This was how Su Ping was able to defeat the other world Heavenly King. The silence lasted for half a minute this time. A young-looking man stood up, with a gloomy expression. He was the one who had tried to stop Suping just then. However, his attempt had failed. Given how fast Suping had killed the old man, the young man was convinced that Suping was at the void state. Who are you really? You must have been at the legendary rank for quite some time. It wouldn't have taken long for us to find out. Are you really from the blue planet? The young man asked, with a wary look. His words reminded the other legendary battle pet warriors. Indeed. They had never heard about this person. It would be hard for him to stay unnoticed for long after reaching the legendary rank. Some of them were hiding, like the old man of the king family. Still, this would involve keeping activities to a minimum, including cultivation. As a result, people like the old man from the king family would have weak powers, even at the legendary rank. They would only be able to defeat those at the titled rank, and not their peers who cultivated normally. But Suping was not like that old man of the king family. They had not heard about him, but he had managed to stun them all. It would be understandable if he were from another place. That other place would mean the Interstellar Federation. The legendary rank battle pet warriors seemed fearful upon thinking about this possibility. Legendary battle pet warriors weren't valued in the Interstellar Federation. If Suping originated from there, he surely had some strong connections that they couldn't mess with. That being said, the blue planet also fell into the Interstellar Federation's jurisdiction, since it was also its point of origin. They could report the wrongdoing to the Interstellar Federation and ask them to send someone to discipline him. Who told you that I was at the legendary rank? Suping glared at the young man. As for the other question, you don't deserve to know the answer. The wild beasts are running loose out there and you're still in the mood to amuse yourselves here, instead of going to hunt them down to clean up the barren area. You ignored the pleas to save the lives of tens of millions. Since the tower is not set up to protect the vulnerable, you will no longer receive money and respect from the vulnerable. Suping turned to Zijian Shui, Mayor, I will be the one protecting the Longjian base city from now on. Do not waste your money on these cowards. You. Some legendary battle pet warriors' faces turned crimson with anger. However, Suping had killed two of them in a row, both had been done with a single move. Some of the Ocean State warriors didn't even dare to argue, although they were livid with rage. Some of those at the Void State were flushed with agitation. Suping's statement had cast a glint of doubt in them. It was evident that Suping was from the blue planet and he loved his base city dearly, which was why he went to the tower to create a scene, all for the sake of that base city. His actions wouldn't have been worthwhile if he weren't from the blue planet. Are you saying that you're not at the legendary rank? The young one asked again, are you trying to say that you're a noble one at the star rank? The other legendary battle pet warriors' pupils contracted wildly. Such an existence was not among them, but the name alone carried an overwhelming power. A noble at the star rank. The star rank was a step higher than the legendary rank, an incredible tier. Those who were at the star rank would be esteemed even in the Interstellar Federation. If that were the case, then killing a beast like the otherworld heavenly king would be a piece of cake. None of your business. Suping glared at him. He never did anything to conceal his strength. All those people could sense it, they just wouldn't believe it. Suping's contempt irked the young man. Furiously, he cried, don't you know that the tower is heaven for the blue planet? You killed two legendary battle pet warriors today. I suggest you improve your attitude or you'll find death soon enough. Death? Suping sneered. By whom? You? If this is the heaven of the blue planet, then I will shatter the heaven today. Outrageous. You cannot challenge the entire tower even if you were at the void state. The legendary battle pet warriors were boiling with anger. Suping's remarks were like slaps right on their faces. Suping wore a sarcastic grin, he felt sorry for them. He could tell that while all those legendary battle pet warriors were accusing him and shouting madly, none of them were willing to step up. They were all waiting for others to take the lead. Not only could the general public act cowardly, the powerful ones could be cowards as well. Cowards. Suping's disappointment was just as strong as his anger. Legendary battle pet warriors were supposed to be the rare talents, but they turned out to be spineless people clinging to life instead of challenging death. Was this how mankind's most powerful should be? I'm not interested in challenging you. And you're not worth my while, Suping mumbled. He had lost interest. He gazed at Legend Pluto. I'm here to ask for the herb. I heard you had the soul nurturer and I want that. Name your price. You can sell it to me or you can give it to me for free. Your choice. Legend Pluto was also at the Void State and he hailed from the Nordic region. He, too, was hopping mad because of Suping's attitude. Even so, he was aware that this person was not to be underestimated. He had seen how Suping stopped the young legendary battle pet warrior. As far as Legend Pluto could tell, Suping was also at the Void State and he wasn't sure if he could defeat the latter. You want my soul nurturer? The sudden change of subject took Legend Pluto off guard. He also sensed that the other legendary battle pet warriors were turning their focus to him. I do have it. But, I'm not going to sell it to you, nor would I give it to you for free. Your demise is already determined. Do you honestly think you can leave the tower after committing murder? How hilarious. What? The fading killing intent rose again. Have you thought it through? He glared at Legend Pluto. What? Do you want to fight me? Legend Pluto raised his eyebrows. He wasn't sure if he could crush Suping, but he wasn't afraid of him. Besides, his peers were there. Once he injured Suping, the others would spring up and join in. Since you are not giving it to me, then you don't need to stay alive. Suping enunciated each word. The still force field suddenly began to spin and a glint of violence rose from his eyes. Boom. A stream of energy burst out from Suping, creating a turbulence. In the next second, Suping strode toward Legend Pluto, who was still seated. Legend Pluto was taken aback by Suping's sudden move. Frightened by his resolve, Legend Pluto didn't hesitate to summon his battle pet. 9 swirls opened up at the same time, 9 Beast Kings emerged. 3 of the Beast Kings had already reached the void state. There was a Beast King that looked like a massive tumbling black fog, without a tangible body. The Beast King murmured and then seeped into Legend Pluto, Master. Soon, 2 beams of darkness oozed out from Legend Pluto's eyes. There was something wickedly strange about him, and his skin became so pale that he looked like a dead man. Behind him was his force field, which displayed an ocean of blood. Many corpses floated in the ocean of blood, which produced a horrifying view. Space of slaughter. Legend Pluto shouted. His voice sounded different. It seemed that there was another voice layered behind his voice. Darkness had swallowed all the light around them, seemingly about to eat Suping up. I will show you the authentic world of the dead. Legend Pluto wore a cold look. The ocean of blood was tumbling, emitting a foul smell that began to spread across the dark area. Chapter 523 Mountain Split. All senses were cut off in that space of slaughter, a place constituted by nothing but darkness. Not even pain could be felt, you wouldn't even know if you were being attacked. As Legend Pluto's force field spun, blood, and a foul smell continued to assault Suping, who was inside. He felt like he was submerged in blood. Well, I missed that feeling. Suping felt his eyes were turning red as he took in the smell of blood. He moved his eyeballs in the darkness as if looking around. What? Legend Pluto stopped in his tracks when he was just about to strike. He felt chills, deep in his heart. That space of slaughter one he was so familiar with was hiding a monster he could not see. Legend Pluto immediately looked into the space of slaughter. He had a clear view, since it was his domain. Soon after, he found that Suping was looking right at him, with his blood-red eyes. He's able to see me? Legend Pluto was filled with trepidation. Right then, bolts of lightning flashed around Suping. A loud noise resounded in that quiet, dark space. Suping turned into a bolt of lightning that charged toward the legendary warrior. Legend Pluto was no longer wondering about it. Suping was able to feel him. Of course, he didn't have the luxury of time to prolong this contemplation. Because Suping was moving simply too fast. Ghost blood corpses. Legend Pluto resorted to a legendary skill that was able to produce horrors. Ghosts wailed in the space of slaughter. Behind this senior rose a huge shadow. In the meantime, his colorless skin began to take on a red color. His completely black eyes, including the sclera, glimmered with a red glow. Some strange grains covered him, accentuating his gloomy and cold aura. Boom. Legend Pluto turned into a blood corpse. He growled and got ready for Suping's strike. The entire space of slaughter shook violently. Once a muffled sound was heard, the space of darkness was torn apart. The glaring virtual fist was about to topple the entire Nightfall Mountain. Boom. The air was rippling and the mountain was shaking. Legend Pluto violently smashed into the ground, creating a cave due to the sheer force. All the legendary battle pet warriors on the mountain were panic-stricken. They saw how Legend Pluto took action out of anger. He had merged with his most powerful pet and built up the space of slaughter which had made him famous. The space of slaughter could not only isolate Suping's senses but also from those outside, except for the caster, Legend Pluto. The legendary battle pet warriors saw space being torn apart and Legend Pluto flying out from it, even before they could get an idea of the situation inside. Space was cracked? So quickly? It couldn't have happened. Legend Pluto was at the void state. Not even an enemy of the same rank could have defeated him so. The other legendary battle pet warriors, including Legend North King, stared with utter disbelief. Suping was standing in the air, like the god of all that was evil, and that pair of blood-red eyes could swallow every living being in the world. He was able to make their blood curdle. How many killings did he go through to become like this? Legend North King was the most stunned of all. Suping wasn't like that at the Supremacy League. How could he have become such a fiend in a couple of days? No one was able to progress that fast. The Ocean State Battle Pet Warriors were too astonished to speak. They could no longer belittle that young man here. He was simply much more powerful than they were. No wonder the previous 2 legendary Battle Pet Warriors had died within a single move. That young man was a demon in human skin. He had to be at the Void State. Even at the peak of the Void State. How scary. They had never heard of such a man before. He had risen to prominence, seemingly getting out from nowhere. Slap. Legend Pluto crawled out from the rubble and got out from the pit on the ground. His chest had caved in, blood of a dark purple color was coming out from his mouth and nose. He wasn't entirely a human right then. The bodily structures have changed. He should be regarded as a new kind of existence. Again, his embarrassed state had yet again transfixed others. You Humphrey. Legend Pluto felt he had become numb after experiencing that much pain. The bones in his chest broke. He glared at Suping, who was in the sky, in disbelief and rage. The senior thought death was knocking on his door. The guy was a monster. Suping looked down on Legend Pluto coldly. He summoned the Dark Dragon Hound back in case other legendary battle pet warriors would sneak up on his pet while he fought them. While the Dark Dragon Hound was unusually strong, it was merely at the Ocean State, but there were 5 legendary battle pet warriors at the Void State. Of all the legendary battle pet warriors at the Void State, you are the weakest one, Suping said with contempt. Give me what I am asking for and I will spare you a life. Legend Pluto became red in the face from anger and quaked with rage. I'm the weakest of all the legendary battle pet warriors at the Void State? Seriously? Of all the legendary battle pet warriors at the Void State present, he was one of the 3 most powerful ones. The other legendary battle pet warriors at the Void State weren't any more pleased to hear that. 2 of them were weaker than him. Suping was shaming Legend Pluto, so he was shaming them as well. Arrogant. Suping's words echoed in the air. All the legendary battle pet warriors and the titled rank servants were able to feel how proud and arrogant the young man was. Upset as they were ever since the horrifying strength of the young man, no one argued with him. He had defeated Legend Pluto, he would enjoy such a high status. Unfortunately, Suping had chosen to be on the bad side of the tower. The legendary and titled battle pet warriors would not willingly decipher that young man. Why was he doing that, just for people of one base city? Was it all worthwhile? That was the tower, for crying out loud. The most powerful organization of the Blue Planet. He had not only ruined his future, he had also found himself an intimidating enemy by offending the tower, just for the sake of some puny and pitiful lives. So stupid. Everyone was thinking different things, but no one expressed it outright. You want my stuff? Keep dreaming. Legend Pluto bit his teeth. If he were to hand over whatever Suping was asking for after this beating, he would be so disgraced that he would never be able to stand up straight in front of his peers. Suping sneered. So, you will cry only when death is staring you in the face. Why don't you find out? Legend Pluto was not backing down. Humphrey. From a red lotus stood up a bold, old man. He was glaring, like the sun, and magnificent, like the ocean. When people looked at him, they would feel that their minds and hearts had been purified. They would have a momentary peace and quietness. The tower is not a place for your wild actions. The old man glared at Suping. Behind him appeared his force field inside, which was a fairyland. With picturesque flowers and birds inside and the gurgling springs, the force field was extremely beautiful and peaceful. Legend Buddhist sound. The titled battle pet warriors trembled as they laid eyes on the old man. He was at the Void State and he was from the continent named the Southern Ocean, where the temperature was hot and the environment humid. People there worshipped many gods and deities. Each base city on that continent was named after a god or a deity. Suping gazed at the old man. He shared his view about that fairyland force field. People say that force fields are reflections of the mind. Your force field is peaceful and pure but is reduced to nothing but a form. If you do have a kind heart, you wouldn't have just sat here, raising your wine cup and chatting merrily. You must know that more than one base city out there is under attack. Suping forcefully articulated. When the Longjian base city was under attack, many from other base cities offered to help. Suping was reading the news at that time. He later learned that there were other base cities under attack at the same time, other than Longjian base city. But those base cities didn't get much attention because no beast kings like the otherworld Heavenly King were there. Kindness is a smart man's virtue. Willfully risking our lives is not kindness, but foolishness, the bald, old man refuted. The deep caves need to be guarded at all times. Who can tell when someone over there will be sacrificed? We must keep our powers at all times. We do not have spare hands to help out those base cities. There are over 50 base cities in your subcontinent district. What is one less? Do you know what the big picture means? Do you want us to turn our back on all of mankind for the sake of 1 or 2 base cities? Haha. Suping burst out plasma laughter out of pure anger. Nicely put, turning back on all of mankind. You're comparing the lives of the world and that of one or two base cities, huh? The deep caves need people. Does that justify your sorry effort to cling to your life here? I seriously wonder about the real number of legendary battle pet warriors that are actually stationed at the deep caves. You are a legendary battle pet warrior, but you withheld that information and didn't come here to report for duty. What gives you the courage to talk about justice? The old man argued. You must have become a legendary battle pet warrior for 400 to 500 years to reach this stage. However, you've hidden this fact for hundreds of years to avoid your duty. Now your hometown is in danger and you decide to step out? Suping laughed at the sky. Who told you that I'm at the legendary rank? If I were, I would have slapped each one of you already. You Humphrey. Nonsense. The old man flew into a rage. Suping's words had riled up the other legendary battle pet warriors again. Suping indeed had every right to be aggressive and arrogant, but this was over the line. Slapping each one? The legendary battle pet warriors? Legend North King fulminated. Suping, mind your attitude. This is the tower. Do not, for a second, think you can do whatever you want just because of your strength. You're at the Void State. But do you know that there's the Fate State? You'll be doomed when the Fate State chief of the tower comes here. Suping grinned sarcastically. Of course I know there are people at the Fate State in the tower. But no one can stop me when I want to leave. Why else do you think I am staying here, wasting time with you? Now, give me the herb I want and I will leave right away. I don't want to waste another second with the lot of you. From now on, the tower will no longer be part of my business. I have no use for the soul nurturer, but I will never give that to you. Legend North King laughed grimly. Wait for the chief to cut your head off. Suping was boiling with rage. Go to hell. Boom. A beam of glaring red light shone around Suping and blood seeped out from the cracks of the white bones. He had already overexerted himself back when he was fighting the other world Heavenly King, passing out from exhaustion later. He had already slept for 2 days but had not fully recovered. And yet, Suping didn't mind his tiredness. He burned his blood and turned that into energy. Roar. Suddenly, a dragon's roar sounded. The claps of thunder were the answer to the dragon's roar. Suping roared and turned into a bolt of lightning, exuding a shocking coercion, like a meteorite that was pressing against the blue planet. With divine energy erupting from his fist, he slammed down on Legend Pluto into the ground. That punch was like a meteorite, like a comet falling, invincible. The sneer froze on Legend Pluto's face. Having reached the void state, he had already started to learn how to manipulate space. He was able to see how the void was collapsing under Suping's punch. Space would cave in wherever his fist passed, leaving behind some dark traces. No, this cannot be. Legend Pluto was panic-stricken. He could barely bat his eyes. He shouted, wildly, and summoned his beast kings to protect him. He unleashed many legendary defensive skills, one after another. However, that invincible fist had crushed all of the barriers and armor formed with legendary skills. It was just as if Legend Pluto would have painted an exquisite painting and yet Suping had torn it into pieces. I cannot die. Legend Pluto cried. The punch landed on him the next second. With a boom, the Nightfall Mountain trembled, from the peak to the foot of the mountain. The formerly hovering mountain was falling down. Boom. The landing of the mountain had caused a violent shake and a loud noise once again. The mountain was split due to the impact caused by the landing. Those who were previously standing on the mountain rebounded as it hit the ground. But, apart from a few titled battle pet warriors, the others remained unhurt. Some reacted fast enough and took to the sky before the mountain fell. Fright was frozen on their faces as they stared at the fallen mountain. The ancient mountain that had been in the mysterious realm for countless ages was crushed. The mountain was split into many hills with the impact. The buildings and pavilions on the mountain were shattered. No one was able to utter a single word. No one could have imagined any of that. Where is Legend Pluto? Look, his pets. Soon, someone remembered to ask about Legend Pluto, but it seemed that he had been buried under the ruins. Someone noticed his battle pets instead. Those beast kings were massive, they would be easily spotted. However, equally easy to spot was the dull look on their faces. Chapter 524 Fight the Fate State. The dull look on the beast king stunned them because they were too familiar with that situation. It was the look of a severed contract. Did Legend Pluto die? Was that punch the end of Legend Pluto? He was at the void state. How could he have died with just one move? Some legendary battle pet warriors tried to search for Legend Pluto. There were traces of him in the ruins, so they hurried over and moved the rocks and boulders away. Legend Pluto. What they saw filled them with apprehension and made their lips curl. Legend Pluto's corpse was indeed found in the ruins. His head was crushed, as well as his chest. Only his torso could be recognized, but blood, and the torn skin made it too horrible for the eyes. Legend Pluto wasn't breathing. His death had been too tragic. Horrifying. People looked at the young man hovering in the air, the person who was more like a god among demons. He stood up straight, overlooking all of them. Legend North King and the bold old man were so shocked that they stared woodenly and their jaws hung low. Same as Legend Pluto, they were at the void state, and yet, Legend Pluto was unable to make it through after one move. They didn't have to ponder to know how weaker they were compared to Su Ping. They had reasonable suspicion that Su Ping had already reached the fate state. After all, they had gauged the power of the punch by merely watching, and they could see the air splitting. Neither of them could have done that. A whoosh. The peaceful force field behind Legend Buddhist sound vanished. He stopped sustaining it, he was too shocked to fight against Su Ping. Legend Pluto was even more powerful than he was, he had found that out in their previous matches. However, Legend Pluto had been killed by Su Ping in an instant. Legend Buddhist Sound simply felt lucky he didn't give in to his impulses. Otherwise, people would have been digging out his corpse right then. Even if Su Ping wasn't at the fate state, he wasn't one whom they could have competed against. All the legendary battle pet warriors at the ocean state had been struck dumb. Legend Pluto, the one they had looked up to, died an instant, which was not something they could have imagined. This young man is a killer god. Huh? Su Ping stood in the air and the force field was wiggling behind him. He noticed that Legend Buddhist Sound had lost his will to fight. Still, Su Ping didn't relax. If anything, he was even more alerted and furious. He didn't know where the anger and alertness came from, but he couldn't stop feeling disappointed. Indeed, he was disappointed. Those were the most powerful warriors on the blue planet. However, all he was able to see were faces wearing shocked and fearful looks. Is this how the powerful people look? He clenched his fists and suddenly understood why they had not dared to go when they heard the name Otherworld Heavenly King. They were even afraid of him, one who was at the 7th rank, not to mention the Otherworld Heavenly King which was at the fate state. He opened his mouth. Give me what I want. We won't interfere with each other from here on. The legendary and titled Battle Pet Warriors came back to their senses. The titled Battle Pet Warriors were even more panic-stricken. They had been working at the tower for so many years, and yet, they had never seen anything like that. Nightfall Mountain had been standing there for ages. If people learned that it had been split, the entire world would become an epicenter. Su Ping finished expressing his mind but no one answered. The legendary Battle Pet Warriors looked at each other speechlessly. Those at the Ocean State had placed their hopes on those at the Void State, while those at said rank were hesitating. They could have teamed up to deal with Su Ping if he were like them. Still, Su Ping had demonstrated a much more powerful strength. They didn't know what to say in reply. It would be a disgrace for the tower if they said yes and gave him what he wanted. Su Ping had created too much trouble to be let go like that. However, no one present had the capabilities to stop Su Ping. Therefore, no one had the guts to utter vicious words for fear that Su Ping's anger would be rekindled. It was evident that another round of conflict would follow if they decided to disagree. No one wanted to be the person being targeted by Su Ping. No one said a word while they were thinking about different things. Su Ping bellowed, "What? No one can make the decision here." Those at the Void State looked pale, especially under the gaze of those who were at the Ocean State. "Why don't you go and tell him?" they inwardly complained. Someone flew over from the distance while they were struggling. That noise gradually increased as he got closer and closer. They looked up, they were more than glad to see that person. "Deputy Chief. Deputy Chief is here. This guy is over. He broke the Nightfall Mountain. He's doomed." Many legendary battle pet warriors could not help but flash their smug smiles. They had been too afraid to breathe deeply with the mere prospect of fighting Su Ping on their own. They didn't even forget to hide their joy, they became less tense. Legend Buddhist Sound, Legend North King and the others who were at the Void State were relieved. They would have also lost all of their dignity if no one in charge faced Su Ping. Su Ping turned around upon hearing the noise. The one who was on his way over was a white-haired, middle-aged man, his white hair cascaded down his back. There was indifference reflected on his face. He placed his hands behind his back, he would teleport every now and then as he flew over. He had arrived in a few seconds. Huh? The white-haired man frowned when he saw the crushed Nightfall Mountain. He looked around and fixed his gaze on Su Ping. He was surprised to see a person covered in white bones. A strange form of merging. He could tell right away that was not the normal merging because Su Ping and his pet were not integrated. It was more like Su Ping was wearing the pet. "Who are you?" the white-haired man asked in his authoritative voice. Su Ping had heard the legendary battle pet warriors' conversations. "Are you the deputy chief? I'm Su Ping from the Longjiang base city. I came here to ask for an herb." "An herb?" The white-haired man frowned. The man asked coldly as he stared at the crushed Nightfall Mountain. If so, why are you acting wildly here? No reason. They simply wanted to kill me, so I punched back, Suping answered. Nonsense. One legendary battle pet warrior stood up to lawn the blame. You were accusing us of not helping you defend your base city, and you came here to make trouble. Indeed. I can prove that. Deputy Chief, you must right this wrong for us. He has already killed 3 legendary battle pet warriors, just relying on his strength. The legendary battle pet warriors piled on angrily, never mentioning Suping's contempt and raving words. Just the fact that he had killed 3 of their peers and friends without leaving complete corpses behind was enough to fill them with rage. The white-haired man was having a hard time believing that. He said while locking his eyes on Suping, "You said you're from the Longjian base city. I have some recollection of that place. The place that the Otherworld Heavenly King was about to strike was the Longjian base city, right? We have the right to consider whether to send legendary battle pet warriors. That is our business, and we have to do it voluntarily. That is not our obligation," he added. "If we were willing to help, it would be because we were too kind. You could not blame us for anything if we were unwilling. Who said anything about the strong being obligated to save the weak? Right. Listen to the man." The other legendary battle pet warriors eyed Suping with hostility. Suping laughed, instead of flipping out. "I actually agree with you. I never said anything about you having to save us. But, you've taken our money. Half of the taxes people pay every year are for you. People have squeezed themselves to save up enough money for you. You should have done something since you've taken our money. If you didn't have such abilities, then the least you could do is to listen to some teachings. Me killing them had nothing to do with you not helping us. I killed the 3 because they hated me for what I said. And I thought I didn't have the right to accuse them. Tit for tat. That is my rule. If I were killing people just because you folded your hands while people were dying, well, then it wouldn't have been 3 dead bodies." Outrageous. Someone yelled. "The deputy chief is here. How dare you continue your arrogant way? What? Are you implying that you can kill us all? Darn. This punk must be punished with death. Kill him. This vicious man is not worthy of his strength. Indeed. Leaving him free and at large in the world can lead to tons of troubles." All the legendary battle pet warriors were denouncing Suping. Suping couldn't help but break into laughter. Haha. I'm not worthy of my strength? Did you give me the strength? No. I worked hard to earn it. I can't lead to tons of troubles? You let the wild beasts strike us while you entertained yourselves here. Now you're talking about future troubles. What a load of nonsense. The deputy chief pulled a long face. Be aware that this is the tower, the palace with the most authority on the blue planet. You're also at the legendary rank. Have you not thought about the consequences? Suping stopped laughing. What? The place with authority doesn't allow for some harsh words? I'm here for that herb. Now, give it to me and I'll be on my way. I will never set foot here again. You're more than welcome if you want to come after me to avenge the 3 deceased. It's not easy to become a legendary battle pet warrior, but you just had to destroy your future. I will let you go if you can take one of my moves. If you cannot, then prepare to serve at the deep caves for the rest of your life. Suping sneered. Try me. Suping had already noticed that the deputy chief was at the Fate State the moment he arrived. To be honest, Suping couldn't have told that with his 7th rank. But he noticed that because he had seen too many legendary battle pet warriors at the Fate State. All the celestial gods in the demigod burial were comparable to legendary battle pet warriors at the Fate State. He was so familiar with that unique energy. He was able to tell right away. For Suping, dealing with those at the Fate State was not easy, but he wasn't afraid. He was able to sense that the deputy chief wasn't one of the powerful ones. The deputy chief was too weak in comparison. It was likely that he had just reached the Fate State and was even weaker than the Otherworld Heavenly King. Outrageous. Deputy chief, use your God Devourer to finish him. The other legendary battle pet warriors cheered for the deputy chief. He wasn't bragging. His most powerful reliance was his sword. Nothing else would matter if Suping could withstand that one strike. The deputy chief didn't say anything in reply. He opened up 2 swirls and from them hopped out 2 beast kings at the void state. One of them was a dragon. That dragon was much more honorable compared to the Inferno dragon and other dragons with a titled rank bloodline. The dragon was as huge as a mountain. It flew to the deputy chief and merged with him before it landed on the ground. The deputy chief grew by several times, reaching close to 8 meters. Golden dragon scales covered his skin and his eyes also turned golden, full of majesty. He waved his hand and grabbed a white sword from the void. The sword was 3 meters long, mounted with 7 skulls. The sword cast 1,000 beams the moment the deputy chief took hold of the sword. His force field appeared. There were figures of deities moving about in that force field. He gave off such a sacred feeling that people couldn't even look at him. Su Ping put on a serious face as the deputy chief was gaining momentum. He took precautions. His force field began to spin and some of the faint demons became clearer. At the moment, the two of them stood in the air, but they seemed to be like a demon and a deity facing each other. One of them was a god giving out radiance and the other one was a demon that could swallow all light with a weeping fiend behind him. Flames burst out from the sword the deputy chief was holding. That was a sword that could cut up everything and anything in the world. Su Ping's eyes reddened. He could feel his skin splitting. He perceived the smell of death. But that stimulation made him all the more craving for that smell. Roar. A demon crawled out from the force field behind him and wrapped itself around Su Ping. Su Ping's vigor grew instantly. A second demon came out and entangled Su Ping. Su Ping's strength grew again with the two demons' help. The deputy chief's pupils contracted wildly. He poured all of his energy without hesitation and focused his mind on the sword. Boom. The sword was drawn. Time and space shivered. Twisted marks appeared in the air. All light vanished as if the sun had fallen. Su Ping shouted and unleashed his fist of exorcist. The massive golden fist whooshed out and the majestic skeleton king behind him punched out from his throne. Boom. Heaven and earth quivered. The sword and the fist bumped into each other. All sound in the world died down. A booming noise came out. The glaring light ate up everyone's sight. Some titled battle pet warriors felt a pain in their eyes, some of their eyes even began to bleed. Even the legendary battle pet warriors had to use their hands to shield the light. After the glaring light came tides of energy that were burning hot, pushing everyone backward. Boom. A noise that echoed in the sky lingered in the mysterious realm. That noise lingered for a long time. Everything settled down after who knows how long. Those present could not wait to refocus once they regained their eyesight. What they saw came as an astonishment. Su Ping and the deputy chief were still standing in the air. Both of them. They saw that the young man was covered in blood. The deputy chief was not any better. His white hair was gone, all gone. There was blood at the corner of his mouth as well. Su Ping breathed deeply. There was pain everywhere. He wasn't hurt because of what the deputy chief did to him, but because he had overexerted himself. He was merely at the 7th rank. He had to leverage the little skeleton and the force field to withstand a strike from a warrior at the Fate State. The deputy chief was eyeing Su Ping with disbelief. The hand he had used to hold the sword was shivering and his arm was numb. That energy passed down his arm to his entrails. He felt the astral powers inside him were boiling, making him want to puke. This young man survived my strongest move? Even the 4 heavenly kings would have been badly mauled. The deputy chief realized that Su Ping was seriously wounded and he seemed to have been already injured before. Finish him. He wielded his sword again, the sword was shining with boundless radiance. Huh? Su Ping looked at the man standing opposite of him. Coldness appeared on his face. The deputy chief had said that he would let him leave after one move, but he was wielding his sword again. He was cutting the weeds and digging out the roots. Su Ping couldn't even believe that such a nobleman would break his promise. You are not worthy enough to kill me. Su Ping was swept by a wave of anger. He had one more item from the old Dragon King that he could use, an item that could send him to a random place, but the item could only be used once. He did not use it when he was fighting the otherworld Heavenly King. Back then, he could have been sent away from the Longjiang base city, although the base city would have been destroyed, except from his store. Even if in the end the Heavenly King stepped into the bounds of the store and was killed, the Longjiang base city would still be gone. Su Ping would have hated to see only his store survive. After all, he loved and cherished many customers and friends who lived in the base city. The other titled and legendary battle pet warriors were surprised to see their deputy chief draw his blade again. Some were happy while some were less so. All of a sudden, people heard a sigh. Let's stop right there. It seemed that the sigh came everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Chapter 525. Leaving that voice startled the legendary battle pet warriors. The chief. Has the chief finished his cultivation? The legendary battle pet warriors that had joined the tower ages ago eyed the void around them with astonishment. The chief was, without a doubt, the single most powerful man on the blue planet. The chief would stay in closed-door cultivation quite often. It was strange that he would come out this day. Was he disturbed by the noises here? The legendary battle pet warriors who had joined the tower in the recent century didn't recognize the voice at first. The senior's exclamation solved their confusion. It never occurred to them that they would see him that day. They had heard so many stories about that mysterious chief but never met him in person. Chief. The deputy chief, who was still preparing his strike, put away his sword. He turned to face a location in the void. Eventually, he cupped his fists and said, Master, you have finished cultivating? Master? Many legendary and titled battle pet warriors alike were surprised by that salutation. The chief was the deputy chief's master? But the members with the most seniority of the tower were not as surprised. They were all conscious of how stunning the chief was and the relationship between the chief and the deputy chief. Bzing. There were ripples in the air, and from the ripples stepped out a middle-aged man wearing a white robe. The middle-aged man's eyes were as deep and pure as the stars. He wore his black hair down, like a man from ancient times, standing in the air, barefoot, and everything about him said he was a refined gentleman. Su Ping looked at the man. There seemed to be white lotuses blooming around him in the void. That purity could settle the mind and calm down violence. He felt the anger in his heart had faded away. Peak of the fate state? Su Ping squinted his eyes. He was of a steady mind since he was still merged with the little skeleton and was unafraid of any space confinement. He could leave. Chief. Chief. The legendary battle pet warriors bowed with the utmost respect. They were all at the legendary rank, but they could not compare to the chief. The head of the tower glanced over. He couldn't help but feel sorry for the destroyed Nightfall Mountain, which brought him to a sigh. His gaze lingered on Su Ping for a moment and realized something strange about him. Sir, I can feel your breath of life. You seem to be young. Are you in your 20s? The titled and legendary battle pet warriors turned to Su Ping in disbelief. In his 20s? Seriously? This young man is not as old as he looked, is he? Su Ping kept a straight face. You can sense the breath of life. I think you're getting the hang of manipulating time. You're not that far away from the star rank, are you? The chief was surprised that Su Ping knew this. I wonder, which rank are you at? The onlookers were completely dumbstruck. Su Ping said that the chief was reaching the star rank, and the chief had to ask about Su Ping's rank. Was he clueless? Is this young man at the same rank as the chief? But isn't he just in his 20s? How could a person reach the legendary in his 20s? Su Ping replied with a wordless snort. Asking about a man's cultivation rank was as stupid and impolite as asking a girl's age. The deputy chief scolded Su Ping. Mind your manners. Su Ping looked at him from the corner of his eye. What's wrong with my manners? He's your master, not mine. You should mind your own. You and I are not that close. You. The deputy chief was furious. Su Ping said nothing else to the deputy chief. He was stopped by the chief when he was preparing his second strike. Su Ping was unable to pretend that didn't happen. Revenge was out of the question at the moment. He would have to solve the issue sometime in the future. The chief lifted his hand to stop the deputy chief from uttering another word and cast a warning glance at him. That glance drove away all the rage on the latter's face. He had always respected, and even feared, his master. The chief must have already been there when he got out. He was just hiding in the dark to see how the deputy chief would deal with the matter. And yet, the deputy chief failed to notice the chief. Were they really so different? He remembered what Su Ping said early, the star rank. That was a rank that was too far to reach for legendary battle pet warriors. However, the one that could make that breakthrough would be valued even in the Interstellar Federation. I'm Ji Yuan. How should I address you? The chief was very nice to Su Ping. Many legendary battle pet warriors were baffled by that friendly attitude. Some that were going to tell Su Ping off had to stop. My name is just Su Ping, nothing unusual. Su Ping was able to tell that the chief didn't mean him ill, but he didn't let his guard down. The deputy chief was also an esteemed member of the tower, and yet he broke his promise in public. One's status had nothing to do with one's character. Ji Yuan nodded. You've created a good deal of troubles for us. Do you want to join us or leave? I'm here for the herb. I hear you have the soul nurturer. Give me that and I will leave. Thanks for the invitation, but no. Ji Yuan wasn't surprised to hear his refusal. Go and get the herb for Mr. Su, he said to the deputy chief. The deputy chief couldn't believe what he had heard. Nor could the legendary and titled battle pet warriors. Give Su Ping the herb? Was the chief not going to hold Su Ping accountable for killing 3 legendary battle pet warriors and destroying the Nightfall Mountain? The chief wished to speak further but stopped on second thought. He was able to notice that Su Ping still held a grudge against him. He would be a menace down the road if he were allowed to leave. Master. Ji Yuan looked at him. You promised that you would let him leave if he could withstand one strike. As the deputy chief of the tower, you must deliver your promise. The deputy chief felt embarrassed as if the chief would have slapped him right on the face. He replied with a yes and left. Since the deputy chief didn't object, no one else voiced opposing ideas. Su Ping remained silent. He had been prepared to barge into the vault and grab all the treasures and herbs if they weren't going to give him the herb. He had his storage space, the scroll, and the item that the old Dragon King had given him. He could plunder away all he wanted. But that would mean that he would have to pay a heavy price and his life might be endangered. Also, he wasn't sure he could succeed while Ji Yuan was present. He would be more certain if the deputy chief were the only strong one to beat, since he was weaker than the other world heavenly king, a beast kind he had chased away. There was a chance that he could end the deputy chief's life. A moment later, the deputy chief came back. He threw a black box to Suping. Suping took it over and opened it quickly, clearly nervous. There was a half-transparent herb that was giving off a grayish hue. He could even see through the herb. Is this the soul nurturer? Suping wasn't sure because he had never seen it before, but he had a hunch that it was the real thing. There were rich anima and aura of the dead in the herb, and the two coexisted in harmony, which was miraculous. Zi Qinshui and Qin Zhuang flew over. Zi Qinshui looked over and nodded. Yes, this is the soul nurturer. Suping nodded. What a relief. He said to Ji Yuan, I'm a man of black and white. I'll take this and I owe you one. In the future, if the need arises, you can find me in the Longjiang base city. Of course, don't come if it's too troublesome. You know what to do. Ji Yuan smiled. You're welcome. This herb doesn't belong to me, but to one of the legendary battle pet warriors you killed. You owed him one, if you owe anyone anything. Suping snorted. I would snatch it from him. I would be okay with that. But you're giving this to me, so I must say thank you, and I won't forget your kindness. Ji Yuan eyed Suping with interest but offered no reply. Okay, I'm off. Suping put away the soul nurturer and turned away to leave. Zi Qinshui followed him. He was only there to guide Suping, he would never go back to the tower again. It never occurred to him that going there to asking for an herb would lead to the death of 3 legendary battle pet warriors, including Legend Pluto. That was a massive damage. Not even the beast strikes at the Longjiang base city had cost the lives of many legendary battle pet warriors, and still, 3 perished that day. It was funny how things worked out in life. However, Zi Qinshui wasn't judging Suping. He would have also vented his anger if he had Suping's might. What the legendary battle pet warriors did was just exasperating. Mr. Su, wait up. Qin Zhuang approached him. Suping was baffled. What do you think you're doing? Qin Zhuang first smiled at Suping before he turned on his heels and bowed to Ji Yuan. Chief, I'm Qin Zhuang and I have just joined the tower. But now I've decided to quit. Of course, you can find me if the tower needs me for something like guarding the deep caves in the future. I will still do what my obligation dictates me to do. I hope you can allow that, Chief. Of course. Ji Yuan nodded. It was unexpected to see Ji Fenyuan agreeing so readily. He was more easygoing than he had thought. He bowed to the chief again and went after Suping. Mr. Su, I'm going to follow your directions now. Suping looked at him but flew away without saying anything. The legendary battle pet warriors were not happy about letting the man leave, but they had to make way for him. All the legendary battle pet warriors wore bitter looks as Zi Qinshui, Suping and Qin Zhuang left. An outsider had gone to the tower to swagger around and was allowed to leave just like that. The legendary battle pet warriors were still full of indignation but didn't show it. Ji Yuan suddenly smiled as he watched Suping leave. What an adorable little guy. His smile vanished when Suping was no longer in his sight. He looked around. Is what the young man said true? Beast strikes taking place. What are you still doing here, then? Who can explain? They were drenched in a cold sweat. It implied that the chief had already been there and he knew everything. So, he had given his silent consent when Suping killed the 3 legendary battle pet warriors. What a terrifying realization. Our forefather gathered all the powerful battle pet warriors on the blue planet when he built the tower, hoping to be a guard for the whole world, Ji Yuan said coldly. The blue planet is a primitive planet that has been abandoned by the Federation. If we don't save ourselves, who will? What? Are you waiting for more spatial cracks or the things to crawl out from the deep caves? Those people out there are weaker than you, but they are our hope, our future. Who is to say that there won't be a second forefather among them? The young man who came today is a miracle. Who can say for sure that there's not another one like him in the base cities that have been destroyed? Fearing and trembling, no one said a word. The deputy chief's expressions changed as well. He realized that the chief was surely using the situation to set things in order at the tower. Ji Yuan glanced over the legendary battle pet warriors and all of them lowered their heads. He shook his head. He knew that talking would not do anything sometimes. Everyone had their own philosophies and talking would not change that. Organization could only come after rules and orders were in place. The other world Heavenly King. Longjiang Base City. Ji Yuan stared at the cloudless sky, worried. Suddenly, he realized that he might have forgotten something. The other world Heavenly King was in the Longjiang Base City. So, was the Longjiang Base City safe or not? I think that young man should be able to keep the base city safe. He said to himself. If he couldn't, then the Skywalker should have solved the problem. Anyway, was I wrong? The young man is in his 20s, at the 7th rank. A strange guy. Chapter 526 Realms of Dragons with no one standing in their way. Suping, Zi Qinshui, and Qin Zhuang exited the mysterious realm that housed the tower. As he stood on the chilly snow-capped mountain, Suping turned around and gave one last look at the tower. He had gradually pushed aside that disappointment in his heart. One had to rely on oneself while living in that world. It wasn't good to always wait for others to aid them. Suping summoned the dark dragon hound, which then took its dragon form. Zijinshui and Qinjuang jumped up. The team flew away from the snow-capped mountain. Suping took out the soul nurturer from the black box once they were outside the tower's sphere of influence and summoned the inferno dragon soul. The soul was as thin as a mist and it was likely to disperse at any minute. There was a golden hue around the soul. It was the divine energy that was protecting the soul. Suping had thought about what he should do if he would have been unable to find the soul nurturer. He would have taken the inferno dragon soul to the demigod burial in order to have it rest in the spring found in Joanna's castle. The divine energy would sustain the soul as well, but it wasn't the best solution. Zijinshui and Qinjuang were still full of complicated emotions as they stared at the half-transparent dragon soul. They had exhausted their words. They had been reading reports when Suping was in a coma. They had found out that the famous inferno dragon had met misfortune in the battle, died in the hands of the heavenly king of Otherworld. Fortunately, the dragon's soul was quite resilient and didn't vanish then, which created hope for reviving the inferno dragon. That was why Zijinshui was willing to put aside all of his work and head to the tower with Suping. He wanted to make it up for him. To a large extent, Suping had the main credit for the survival of the Longjiang base city. Thanks were very much in order. The soul nurturer reacted when the inferno dragon's soul came out. The plant began to produce a dark mist that surrounded the dragon's soul. According to what he perceived from their bond, Suping was able to tell that the inferno dragon was feeling quite cozy. The soul shrank and snuck into the root of the soul nurturer to float around inside, absorbing the energy to refine itself. Suping was happy to see that the soul nurturer was working. But, making the dragon's soul last longer with the soul nurturer was just a temporary fix. He had to find the dragon origin that the system had mentioned to revive the inferno dragon. Only then would he rest easy. Zijinshui was also glad that the inferno dragon's soul became stabilized. Looking at the splendor of the snow-capped mountain flashing past his sight, Zijinshui could not help but exclaim, "From today on, the taxes that would send over to the tower will be given to you, Mr. Su. You will be the Longjiang base city's guardian." Suping shook his head. "Save that money for base city's infrastructure. If you do eventually find trouble because of having more than enough money to put to good use, try to reduce the tax so that people can have an easier life." The government's tax income was quite high every year, amounting to several billion, to say a general figure. Suping was not in need of money that he couldn't convert to energy points. He would not find anything to spend the money on. He was a person that was not interested in money, or spending money for that matter, because it became a boring activity. Zijinshui gazed at Suping to make sure that he was not joking. He could not help but get emotional. He was aware that Suping treated his pet store business quite seriously. He was always cautious and thorough in all his dealings. He had even made an enemy out of the Liu family in the beginning, and they competed fiercely. However, when he decided to offer that massive sum of money to Suping, the latter had declined. Zijinshui was convinced that Suping was a person that loved money. He wouldn't have done many crazy things for his pet store if it were otherwise. So why the refusal? Zijinshui could not figure it out. Suping's rejection not only surprised Zijinshui, but also Qinjuang. He looked at Suping, not finding any words to say. Suping was looking at the dragon soul inside the soul nurturer with a tender gaze. He patted the herb, pretending he was patting the inferno dragon. There was a time when he was able to place his hands on the inferno dragon, but the soul was the only part remaining. The once easy display of affection had turned into an impossible task. People didn't know what they had until they lost it. That is how it had always been. Suping put away the soul nurturer in his storage space, so that the inferno dragon could rest easy inside. They traveled in haste, reaching the Longjiang base city within half a day. Suping flew back to his store. Zijinshui and Qinjuang bid farewell because they both had their own work to attend to. Suping didn't invite them into his store before they left. He went back inside after he called back the dark dragon hound to his contact space. Zonglingtong and Tang Ruyan were sitting in the store, agitated as they waited. They didn't think that Suping's trip to the tower would be a promising one. Admittedly, sometimes, girls had good instincts. The two girls were alerted when someone entered the store. They gladly saw that it was Suping, sir. Zonglingtong ran to him gaily. Tang Ruyan's greeting arrived at a close second. She, too, hurried over to see Suping. She sized him up and down and turned pale to see so much blood on him. "What did the legendary warriors of the tower do to you?" Tang Ruyan asked. She was rarely that angry. Zonglingtong had finally noticed what was off about Suping. "Sir, you're seriously wounded? I'll go and find you a healer." She didn't even reach the end of her exclamation when she turned on her heels and began to run. Suping grabbed her by the arm. Grumpily, he said, "What healer? We have the best healer in the store." "What?" Zonglingtong was baffled. She darted a questioning look at Tang Ryuan. Tang Ryuan immediately realized that Suping was not talking about them, but Joanna was rarely with them minding the storefront. Joanna is a full-time employee. That legendary rank girl was quite mysterious. She even knows healing skills. She is indeed older than I am, Tang Ryuan thought. After all, one would need time to master too many things. "I'm okay." There were some arguments but all the problems were solved. Suping gave a summary of the events because he didn't wish for the girls' worry over his welfare. Their worry, as far as he could tell, was quite sincere. As his student, Zonglingtong was rightfully worrying about him. But why Tang Ryuan? She was his captive. Had she been staying with him for too long that she developed the Stockholm Syndrome in the end? Well, on the other hand, Suping wasn't treating Tang Ryuan as his captive, but his friend. What argument? With the tower? Tang Ryuan could not help but press him for more information. If his time at the tower had been unpleasant, then it couldn't have been some simple argument. There had to be some serious troubles. The tower was the most powerful force on the blue planet. When the tower sneezed, even an ancient family like the Tangs would tremble in fear. The tower represented a force that could topple and wipe out any other faction. Therefore, many families would send some of their members to serve under the legendary battle pet warriors, and to collect first-hand information. Tang Ryuan could not help but feel low. Unfortunately, her connections with the Tang family no longer existed. She could have used her identity as the fake family head and find out what had taken place in the tower through her family's channels. Suping shook his head. He was unwilling to share more. "I have other things that I need to do now. Go and tell my mom that I'm back. Tell her not to worry." Zonglingtong nodded. She remembered something. "Ah, sir, your father is finally at home. I heard that he has just returned from the sea." Suping was surprised. The father he had yet to meet was back. What a strange feeling, to see his father. But Suping shook his head. "I will visit them later. Please tell them that I'm back on my behalf." He wanted to revive the Inferno Dragon as soon as he could to lift the burden in his mind. Zonglingtong nodded in agreement. "No problem." Suping patted her head, then he went to the pet room, and closed the door. At the pet room, Joanna was sitting inside one of the nursing pens, cultivating. She opened her eyes when Suping entered. "The tower you visited didn't want to give you the soul nurturer?" she asked because she noticed the blood which was offending to the eye. Suping shook his head. "They did give it to me but there were some complications in the process. But it's all in the past now." Joanna offered no comment. "I'm visiting the realms of dragons to find the dragon origin so I can revive the Inferno Dragon," Suping said to Joanna. "I will still leave the store in your hands." "Should I go with you?" asked Joanna. Suping shook his head. "My death can be reversed but yours cannot." Joanna would die for real in cultivation sites other than the demigod burial, unless she visited the cultivation sites as part of the employee benefits that the system could give her. If she was rated as an outstanding employee, the system would provide her with such a benefit, where Suping was able to use energy points and buy revival chances for her. However, Joanna had not been an employee for long to gain enough points. Be careful. Joanna thought of that strange revival ability Suping had. Suddenly, she laughed at herself for worrying about nothing. Reviving a dragon would be child's play for the mysterious and terrifying existence hiding behind Suping. After all, the pets had been revived countless times in the demigod burial. That existence had to be trying to test Suping by not reviving the dragon right away. Joanna shook her head. She didn't want to dig deeper because she could hardly figure out anything about that existence. Suping pulled up the list of cultivation sites and searched for realms of dragons. He realized that the number of dragon realms was beyond calculation. The Elder Realm of Dragon, Advanced Cultivation Site, the Mighty Realm of Dragons, Advanced Cultivation Site, the Realm of Heaven Expansion Dragons, Advanced Cultivation Site, Archene Realm of Dragons, Top-Level Cultivation Site, Chapter 527 Father and Son. There were other, less advanced dragon worlds. The Realm of Flame Dragons, Middle-Level Cultivation Site, the Realm of 8-Wing Sea Dragons, Middle-Level Cultivation Site, the Realm of Purple Blood Dragons, Middle-Level Cultivation Site. Suping browsed through the list. The diversity of those realms confused him. He asked the system, "There are so many of them. Which one should I choose to find the proper dragon origin?" To that, the system replied, "Each dragon realm has its own type of dragon origin. Dragons have too many branches and they are ancient creatures. The number of major branches goes as high as 4,829. Your Inferno Dragon is not from one of the major branches, it's an offshoot of the major branches, so it doesn't have a realm of its own. The Inferno Dragons are mainly found in the realm of Purple Blood Dragons, the middle-level cultivation site. Su Ping had seen that name a moment before. So, if I can find the dragon origin in that realm of Purple Blood Dragons, I can bring the Inferno Dragon back to life? That is correct. Su Ping immediately pulled up the information about the realm of Purple Blood Dragons. It said in the introduction that the most powerful creatures found there were at the star rank. Most of the dragons thriving in that environment were at the legendary rank, the Void State and the Fate State. That gave him great pressure. Su Ping didn't find it surprising, though. In the Demigod Burial, an advanced cultivation site, those at the star rank were everywhere and there were even gods of a tier above the star rank. Su Ping decided to go at once. I suggest you get 1 million energy points before you go, the system warned him. Su Ping had just remembered that he would have to spend energy points to get to a cultivation site. He was in too much of a hurry to keep a clear mind. He pulled up the interface, which quickly stunned him speechless. He had spent many energy points to breed Beast Kings, back when he was preparing to deal with the Otherworld Heavenly King. His remaining energy points were merely a few hundreds of thousands. That was more than enough for the admission to the cultivation sites, but he would need much more for revival chances. How long can the soul last with the soul nurturer? Su Ping asked. 30 days. Su Ping was a bit relieved. That was ample time. He would be able to take a break and get ready. After all, he would have to face immense dangers in the dragon realms, especially when Joanna was unable to go with him. He closed the list and left the pet room. Tang Ryuan was the only one left in the store. She was surprised to see him coming out already. I thought you said you had things to do. To that question, Su Ping was unable to offer an explanation. Where is Zhong Lingtong? He asked instead. She went to tell your parents about your return. Oh. Get ready. We're going to open for business later, Su Ping said. Tang Ryuan gazed at him. The fact that he was still in the mood to open the door for business relieved her mind. It seemed that Su Ping's mood was recovering. She nodded. I will go and get ready. But you should know that the business is not very good these days. You know, many families are dealing with funeral arrangements after the strike. She stole a glance at Su Ping. Su Ping nodded silently in a grave mood. He left the store and headed home to meet the father he had never seen before. Once he reached the house, he happened to run into Zhong Lingtong by the door, as she was exiting the house. She, too, was surprised to see Su Ping, who had just told them he would be occupied and would not have time to meet his parents. Why is he back so soon? Sir? It's okay. Go and play. Sure. What? Su Ping stepped inside, leaving behind a completely baffled Zhong Lingtong. He had already noticed the unfamiliar presence in the house. People were talking in the living room. He slowly went over. By the table sat a middle-aged man with thick whiskers. He had a withered and wrinkled visage. The tan on his face indicated that he worked under the sun quite a bit. Su Ping's mother had said that his father made a living as a seaman. Su Ping could even perceive the smell of the sea on him. In that day and age, being a seaman was a fatal career. Oh my, you're back. Li Qingru, who was facing away from the door, turned around and happened to see Su Ping, which filled her with a pleasant surprise. However, the blood on Su Ping's shirt rendered her pale with fright. She left the dough she was making, dashing over at the speed of lightning, and said while feeling quite upset, How? Are you okay? I will go and get you a healer. She was so worried that her mind was not functioning correctly, making her stutter. The middle-aged man who was sitting by the table turned around, alerted by his wife's panic. He also ran to check Su Ping after a momentary pause. Ping, are you okay? He placed his hands on Su Ping's shoulders. What a pair of warm and strong hands. Soon, he noticed something that relieved him. Come over and sit down. Take your shirt off. How did you end up like this? Su Ping didn't struggle as his father dragged him to the couch. Su Ping had pictured many times how he and his father would meet, but he had never pictured an encounter like that. His father was nervous and worried. The familiar bond instantly brought them close together. I'm okay. Su Ping just let his father help him take off his shirt, so that his mom and dad could see that there was no wound. It would alleviate their worries. Li Qingru was evidently surprised when she failed to find a single injury on Su Ping. What's with the blood? Is it not yours? Su Ping wanted to say that the blood was his, but the injury was not external. But he couldn't have said so. There were things in the world that could not be explained. Don't worry. I'm fine, Su Ping said. He looked at the flour dough and thought of a way to shift his mom's attention. Are we having flour dough for dinner tonight? Who has flour dough for a meal? Your dad is baking, so we're having dumplings. That's nice. What's the filling? Leek and pork? Of course. Su Ping smiled gladly. Good, the topic was changed. But his father was still staring at him. He stared at Su Ping closely. That was a complicated look that said he missed him, that he admired and was proud of his son for being brave, and felt sorry for his absence in the family. He had so many mixed feelings. I've heard about what you did from your mom. Suyuan-chan took a deep breath. I didn't expect that so many things would have gone down while I was away. You're my good son. Attaboy. Su-ping smiled. You said you were going to be away for a while. So, I have to step up as the only man in the house. Suyuan-chan patted Su-ping's hand but said nothing else. Some things didn't have to be explicitly expressed. Let's go upstairs and have a talk when your mom prepares the flour dough for us. Suyuan-chan said. Li Qingru rolled her eyes. Why do you have to speak behind me? Is there anything you can't let me know? We're having a conversation, man to man. You're not a man yet, Suyuan-chan answered. Li Qingru rolled her eyes again. Don't think you can shirk the responsibility of chopping the pork responsibility. That is your job. Of course, Suyuan-chan answered with certainty and went upstairs with Su-ping. They went to Su-ping's room. Suyuan-chan looked around his son's bedroom and saw a poster with a very curvy and well-developed lady on it. Suyuan-chan cleared his throat. Listen, I understand you're in the prime of your youth. But don't stare at such posters for too long. It's not good for you. Su-ping was speechless. Prime of my youth. I haven't recovered from my fight against the other world when I got into a fight with the tower again. I am far from being at the prime of anything, he said to himself. I didn't know that the last time I was home was almost the last time I would get to see the Longjian base city. Suyuan-chan heaved a sigh. He gazed at Su-ping and said, I heard that you're at the legendary rank and the Longjian base city survived. Thanks to a large part, you defeated the Beast King. You are a hero now. Someone has to stand up in the face of danger. I didn't have much of a choice. Su-ping sat down on his bed, sighing. Suyuan-chan gazed at his son for a while, which ended in a chuckle. When I get back to work, I can tell my buddies in the sea that my son is a hero that saved the Longjian base city. Believe me when I say that they're not going to be convinced. Chapter 528 Seeing the lightning rat again. Su-ping was curious. What do you usually do when out at sea? Our job. Suyuan-chan answered with a smile. As seamen, we sail out on the ships and search for rare and wanted materials in the sea. You must know that there are spatial cracks in the barren areas, but you may not know that you can also find those cracks in the sea. Of course, you won't see many people fighting and contending over things in the sea with so many wild beasts out there. Whoever finds the materials will be the rightful owner. You can collect and pick up anything you find inside those spatial cracks in the sea. Naturally, the inside can be quite dangerous. You may even find beast kings inside some of those cracks. That is when people need us, the professionals, to probe. And how do you do that? It's a job that needs a lot of devotion and special care. We may use some pets with temporary contracts. Us seamen would go in if there are no pets available. Su-ping was at a loss for words. Sea explorations could be fatal. Did his father mean by saying special care? Suyuan-chan went ahead and shared other seamen's stories and described some of the strangest spatial cracks he had seen. Su-ping listened with rapt attention. His father made understating comments of his adventures, but Su-ping was able to grasp the sinister nature of the job. At times he felt scared for his father. They were approaching the end of the topic when Su-ping threw out another question. From what you told me, I can tell that the more powerful you are, the better it is when being a seaman. Why is it that common men work on the sea as well? The reason for that particular question was that Su-ping failed to detect any signs of astral powers on his father, who was not a battle pet warrior, just a common man. What you said is not only a rule for seamen but all occupations. However, those at higher ranks would prefer not being seamen. Why not choose to make some easy money on land? Only those whose lives valued little would take up a job as seamen. Of course, they would be the ones with the guts to do the job, answered Suyuan-chan. There are different levels of us seamen. Battle pet warriors are senior seamen and people like me who are in charge of transporting materials are just average seamen. Su-ping answered with momentary silence. Right then, his mother went upstairs to call them and have them help with the dumplings. Suyuan-chan went downstairs with Su-ping. Suyuan-chan wore an apron and went to the kitchen to chop the pork while Li Qingru washed up the vegetables. Su-ping sat in the living room, watching his parents at work. What a nice and warm image. And yet, something was lacking. Upon further thought, he realized that his bullying candidate wasn't there. He wondered how she was doing at the academy. Su-ping shook his head. Soon after, the dumpling filling was ready. His parents made the dumplings while Su-ping sat there, waiting for the meal. They made quite a few dumplings. His mother cooked a serving for Su-ping and Suyuan-chan, then she went back to cook her share. The father and son pair sat down by the table, eating and chatting. Suyuan-chan asked things about his son, for example, when he had awaked and how he had been able to reach such a high rank. Suping made up an excuse, but he was afraid of being found out because he had a feeling he would not be able to fool his father as easily as his mother. He wondered if his father had bought his story. The lucky thing was that Suyuan-shan was not a battle pet warrior. He might know a thing or two about battle pet warriors, but he was a layman nonetheless, which created a chance for Suping to make up a story. The TV was on. Suddenly, the news report interrupted Suyuan-shan and Suping. That was the Longjiang Base City's official TV channel, which would always report authentic news. Since it was an official channel, it didn't need to broadcast fake news to garner attention. There were images of other base cities on the TV at the moment. The Jinghai Base City was one that was neither far nor too close to the Longjiang Base City. It was closer to the sea, though. The ship that Suyuan-shan had boarded to return had been moored at the Jinghai Base City's port. The Jinghai Base City was also under attack and had actually been breached. The images of collapsed residential buildings, debris, and deformed and bloody remains of the wild beasts were being shown on screen. There was a beast king among the wild beasts striking that base city. Even though there was merely one beast king, the threat was fatal for the Jinghai Base City, which was a Class B base city. Fortunately, many from other base cities went to help. While the Jinghai Base City had been breached and the casualties were many, the Beast King didn't wipe out the base city completely. Apart from the Jinghai Base City, 2 other base cities were under attack. One of the 2 suffered a sad tragedy. The aerial photo showed that 1/3 of the base city had been destroyed. No building remained standing, as if a tank had rolled over the base city. Suping suddenly lost his appetite after looking at all that mess. He remembered the hellish scene outside the Longjiang Base City. Their base city had survived and the wild beasts didn't breach the city. Still, the casualties were just as great as in any other base city. He did help, but the number of wild beasts was simply massive. He had driven away the leading beast kings. However, the remaining wild beasts had been enough to topple any base city. The 5 major families and reinforcements who had traveled from other base cities made grave sacrifices just to protect the base city. They only won because they had outnumbered the wild beasts. It's not safe out there. Suyuan-shan heaved a sigh. He took a couple of more dumpling bites and shook his head. To that, Suping replied with silence. He remembered what he had heard about the deep caves in the tower. He didn't know the details. However, the appearance of the otherworld Heavenly King and the simultaneous strikes on several base cities told him that things had started to go haywire. Apart from the 3 base cities that had already been struck, 2 base cities had been surrounded by wild beasts. A reporter was interviewing a government official at one of the base cities. Am I confident? This is not a time to talk about confidence. But, the Hancheng base city is more than prepared to fight until our last breath. We have detected the presence of 2 beast kings. We earnestly ask for outside help. Honorable titled battle pet warriors, please come and help us out. The people of the Hancheng base city will never forget your kindness. Suping wondered if the tower would send reinforcements to the Hancheng base city when no beast kings like the otherworld Heavenly King was there. The tragic images and the memory of blood spilled outside the Longjiang base city made Suping want to immediately leave and help out those base cities. After a moment of silence, Suping finished his dumplings and went back to his store without lingering further at home. At his store, Suping noticed that all of those waiting there were old acquaintances. They greeted Suping at once, their eyes were filled with admiration as they looked at him. His name had been heard all across the Longjiang base city in the 2 days that Suping was in a coma. After the battle, people saw how the city had been defended. Those who hailed from the 5 major families had fought while disregarding their own safety. The volunteering titled battle pet warriors from other base cities charged wildly against the wild beasts. The one who stood out the most was Suping, whose fight with the Heavenly King had been earth-shaking. Suping had become a household name during the next to last beast strike. This time, he had become even more famous. People knew that it was because of Suping, the 5 major families, and those who had arrived from other base cities that the Longjiang base city was still standing. Suping returned their warm greeting before he went to a corner and called a friend, Venerable the Blade. Mr. Su, what's up? Venerable the Blade didn't expect a call from Suping. Suping heard the whistling wind. Where are you? Do you have time to come over to my store? I'm on my way to the Hancheng base city. Mr. Su, what is the matter? Venerable the Blade asked. I said I would give you a gift after the battle if you came to help us. You must be going to help fight the wild beasts at the Hancheng base city. My gift can be of assistance to you, answered Suping. Mr. Su, you're also aware of what is going on in the Hancheng base city? No problem. I'm on my way, Venerable the Blade said. After the call ended, Suping called Wu Guochen, who was teaching Su Linayu healing skills. He had agreed to travel to the Longjiang base city to lend a helping hand. Mr. Wu, thank you for what you did for the Longjiang base city. When you're free, come over to my store. I have a gift for you. Mr. Su, you are very welcome. I would go even if you didn't ask. I'm at the Jinghai base city right now. Many battle pet warriors and their pets are waiting for me to treat their wounds. I will stop by your store when I have time. Wu Guochun was glad since he was surprised to receive a call from Su Ping. Su Ping remembered the news he saw. He nodded, even though Wu Guochun was unable to see him. He went back to the counter to receive his customers after he took care of the calls. Truth be told, Tang Ryuan could have easily taken care of those customers for him. His presence was only needed when the customers required professional training. Those recurring customers had gone there multiple times, but their wealth didn't allow them to choose the professional training. The beast strike had also sabotaged the economy, which was felt by everyone. In addition to the general public, even the rich households were in danger of bankruptcy. Some companies that were involved in import-export businesses had suffered greatly when the Longjiang base city had decided to close its borders to heal. Su Ping took the customers' orders and saw each of them to the door after the customers thanked him for what he did for the Longjiang base city again. Su Ping went back inside, which seemed quite empty after the customers left. The battle had affected his store as well. Many repeated customers were not in the mood to train their pets at the moment. Su Ping wondered if he should contact Ken Zhuang and ask the 5 major families to stop by and show some support to his business. That way, he would be able to collect enough energy points to revive the Inferno Dragon and upgrade his store as soon as possible. While he was thinking, he heard something outside the store. He saw something familiar. Something, not someone. A chubby little mouse. That purple fur told Su Ping that it was a lightning rat. But that one was quite chubby. Its master had fed it well. Su Ping recognized the look in the lightning rat's eyes at once. He had trained the lightning rat, it was Su Yingying's pet. The next second, Su Ping turned ghastly pale. He was able to sense that the lightning rat had no master. He could sign a contract with it. That pained Su Ping's heart. A thought came to his mind, but he brushed it away and hurried to where the lightning rat was. The little beast was squatting on the staircase, looking around, confused. Su Ping moved closer. The lightning rat had recognized Su Ping as well. Memory clips were surging back in the lightning rat's mind. Its hair stood on end, the lightning rat showed its teeth at Su Ping. How surprising. After all the time, the little guy had not been freed from that trauma. He patted the lightning rat's head. What are you doing here? Where's your master? The lightning rat wanted to move away from the patting, but it was also wary of something at the same time. The lightning rat eventually allowed for Su Ping to pet it. Nevertheless, sparkles of electricity were dancing around and it was still showing its teeth. And yet, the lightning rat came to a sudden stop and its hair softened down as Su Ping posed those questions. The sparkles of electricity died down, the little critter looked at Su Ping, baffled. Su Ping's heart skipped a beat. The lightning rat looked around and struggled away from Su Ping's hand. It turned around, gazing at the street, trying to find something. Su Ping was in a daze. There was a shadow cast over his face, hiding his expressions. Where is this pet from? Tang Ryuan was surprised to see the lightning rat Zhong Lingtong went out with her. She was quickly able to tell something was off with the lightning rat. I don't think it has a master. Is this a lightning rat? I'm detecting a horrifying level of lightning energy inside it. No master? Is it a wild beast? No, that isn't right. See the necklace. This lightning rat must have a master, Tang Ryuan stated after a close examination. Only then did Su Ping notice the necklace hidden by the purple fur. The pendant was a silver heart. Su Ping reached for the necklace, but that action riled up the lightning rat. It jumped back at once and showed its teeth at Su Ping again. This time, the lightning rat didn't hide its ferocity. The surging lightning energy from the lightning rat was truly strong. Both Tang Ryuan and Zhong Lingtong were stunned speechless by that level of energy. Tang Ryuan remembered something. She recalled that there was a girl who would leave a lightning rat for training many times. She realized something that made her face turn cloudy. Su Ping was not offended by how hostile the lightning rat had become. He didn't try to reach for the pendant. He was able to see the word Yin engraved on the silver pendant after crouching down. Are you here? To wait for your master? Su Ping clenched his fingers. He was certain that Su Yangying would never give up the lightning rat, her most powerful pet, unless something had happened to her. Su Ping remembered when Su Yangying and Yi Hao had stopped by to say goodbye before the battle. Never did he think that it would be the last time he would say anything to Su Yangying. Su Ping bit his teeth. He was willing to go and confront the otherworld Heavenly King because he didn't want to see anything happen to his friends, his customers. And yet, he had failed to protect all of them in the end. The lightning rat glared at Su Ping for a moment. The lightning rat calmed down since he didn't take further action. The chubby rat jumped here and there, looking around, waiting for something. But the street was empty. There wasn't even a single pedestrian. Su Ping suddenly took out his phone and he found Yi Hao's number. He called at once. The busy tone seized him with tension. He was worried that he was going to hear something he didn't wish to hear. But soon, the call was picked up and it was indeed Yeehaw who answered. Mr. Su? Su King was relieved. You said you would join the fight. How is Su Yanning? He received no reply. That last kindling of hope had died down. Chapter 529 Selling the Swamp War Crocodile. He found out the answer from Yeehaw. Su Yanning, the girl who had been his first customer, was gone. Su Ping had missed her memorial which had been held when he was in a coma. Su Ping could hardly believe it. Life was so vulnerable. He found no words to describe the sadness in his heart. He had encountered so many deaths and seen so much blood. Still, when the passing was of someone he was familiar with, it was such a distressing feeling. He still remembered that the girl had strived to become an explorer, to make money, to better support her family so that they could move to the uptown area, leaving the shantytown area behind to enjoy a better life. The lightning rat he had trained for her had represented hope for a better life. She had such a promising future in front of her. And all of it had been ruined in a beast strike. The lightning rat was still looking around, sitting on the staircase. Su Ping had understood why the lightning rat would be there. It didn't find its master. The lightning rat thought that its master would go there and pick it up again if it went back to the store. The lightning rat was unaware that its master had bid the world goodbye. The pet's weight would not be rewarding. Su Ping crouched down and patted the lightning rat's head. The lightning rat turned around at once, it showed its teeth and pushed away Su Ping's hand. The dancing sparks showed that it was hostile to him. Su Ping didn't mind the numb feeling on his hand. As he gazed at the lightning rat, Su Ping said, "Your contract has been broken. You have no recollection of your past life. Do you even know who you are waiting for?" The lightning rat shot him a fierce look. Since Su Ping didn't mean ill by his actions, it calmed down a bit. The lightning rat seemed to be confused by Su Ping's question. The lightning rat gradually became sad. The pet was hardly able to tell where the sadness came from. The lightning rat looked intently at the street. All the lightning rat understood was that it felt someone important would show up. But it had no idea what that person looked like. Maybe it would be able to tell if that person appeared. The lightning rat nimbly jumped onto the dragon statue, paying no regard to the overwhelming pressure coming off from the dragon statue. It found a spot and crouched down, gazing, waiting. Su Ping felt his heart hurt so much that he could hardly breathe. He didn't understand why the lightning rat was acting like that after the contract had been broken. But he knew that the girl the lightning rat was waiting for was not coming back. "How about you stay with me from now on?" Su Ping slowly fed the lightning rat his idea through a message from his consciousness. The lightning rat's ears twitched but it did not look at Su Ping. The lightning rat kept on staring at the street and it seemed as if it had integrated with the dragon statue. Su Ping said no more. He understood what the lightning rat wanted. A battle pet warrior could have many pets but a pet could only have one master. Su Ping remembered his inferno dragon as he looked at the lightning rat, remembering how, drenched in blood, the inferno dragon put itself in front of him and how it had proudly shouted that it would never fall while it stood in front of its master. Su Ping clenched his fist and went back to the store. "Sir, the lightning rat." Zhongling Tong moved her lips. She was interested in that masterless lightning rat and wanted it as her pet. Su Ping was able to guess what she was thinking. He also knew she couldn't have tamed the lightning rat by force. He had trained it so well that it was at the peak of the 7th rank, and the thunder flash enabled it to survive even while facing 8th-rank wild beasts. Say no one below the master level would be able to tame the lightning rat. Let it stay. Later, buy some pet food that a lightning rat would like in some store, Su Ping replied. Zhongling Tong said oh after a long while, but she thought of another question at once. "Sir, we have a pet store. I think we have herbs that lightning rats like in our store." Su Ping curled his lips. Of course he knew that, but those herbs were for sale only or for pets he had contracts with. However, without a master, the lightning rat wouldn't have a way to pay for the food. Therefore, he would have to buy food from another pet store. "Just do what I said. Don't ask questions," he said, grumpily. Zhongling Tong had indeed complied. She could sense that Su Ping's mood had taken a blow. The disaster that happened to the Longjiang base city had to be the reason. Zhongling Tong had seen the mess left behind by war for the first time, all during the past 2 days that Su Ping was in a coma. She had seen many people wandering around the streets who had been rendered homeless. The lack of emotion on those people's faces had touched her greatly. "Consider it done," she said. Soon after, a person whooshed over. Venerable the Blade entered the store. He saw Su Ping and the 2 girls at once. He nodded to the girls and said to Su Ping, "Mr. Su, here I am." Su Ping had felt him traveling before he entered the store. "I know that you're going to the Hancheng base city, so I won't waste much of your time. I have a pet I can sell to you. Do you want it?" Su Ping asked. "A pet?" Venerable the Blade didn't expect that Su Ping was intending to sell him a pet. "Yes, The Swamp War Crocodile you met in the battle, Suping explained. Even though the Swamp War Crocodile was a powerful pet, Suping had intended to sell it. He could only sign a slave contract with the Swamp War Crocodile. This would not allow him to take it to a cultivation site to train. The Swamp War Crocodile was destined to reach the peak of the ocean state unless the Swamp War Crocodile was so intelligent that it would make a breakthrough by itself. Since the little skeleton had recovered, Suping was no longer in need of the Swamp War Crocodile. Do you mean that Beast King? Venerable the Blade opened his eyes wide in astonishment. Tang Ryui and Anzong Lingtong were not any less shocked. Both of them knew the pet's name, but neither expected that Suping would give away such a powerful Beast King. Suping said he was selling it, but considering the price, he was practically giving away an invaluable Beast King. Yes. Suping nodded. It can be of assistance to you during your trip to the Hancheng base city. Venerable the Blade stared at Suping, his mind blank. He could not, for the life of him, anticipate that the gift Suping had mentioned was such a generous one. A Beast King. Venerable the Blade had witnessed how the crocodile defeated 2 wild Beast Kings by itself during battle. The crocodile would be one of the most ferocious ones. But Suping was willing to sell him that Beast King. The price is about 200 million. Do you want it? Suping asked. Venerable the Blade came back to his senses, but he was thrown into astonishment, once again, by the price. 200 million? Mr. Su, do you mean billion? 200 million for that Beast King? That was a Beast King. That amount was nothing when compared to the worth of a Beast King. He would have bought it even if there were 2 extra zeros at the end, even if that meant that he would have to spend his life's savings. After all, the possibility of having such a Beast King as a pet was, to be sure, small. He would have never gotten one if he intended to capture one by himself. He would have to pay a legendary battle pet warrior to help him capture one. But to pay a legendary battle pet warrior, he would have to spend at least dozens of billions. 200 million, Suping repeated himself. Suping wasn't even in the mood to make jokes because of what had happened to the lightning rat. If you want it, transfer the money and you can have it now. He had merely signed a slave contract with the Swamp War Crocodile. Canceling that contract would not leave him vulnerable. Yes, of course, yes. Venerable the Blade shouted at once. Only a fool would say no to buying a Beast King at the cost of 200 million. That gift had touched him deeply. He would have never imagined that Suping was talking about handing him a Beast King as a gift. Venerable the Blade gazed at Suping. He had been working alongside Yuan Tanshin for years. All he wanted was for Yuan Tanshin to give him some inspiration so that he could reach the legendary rank. Yuan Tanshin would be able to help him capture a Beast King so that he could be a match for those at the legendary rank. However, while Yuan Tanshin had indicated that he would catch a Beast King for Venerable the Blade, the former had never put that promise into practice. But for the day, Venerable the Blade would be getting one from Suping, a violent one at that. Mr. Su. Venerable the Blade wanted to express his thanks, but was unable to utter those words. He could not summon the courage to say thank you. Suping was fully aware of what Venerable the Blade was thinking. He patted Venerable the Blade's shoulder and said, "We are friends, so you don't have to say anything. You deserve this because you risked your life at a Longjiang base city. But I do have some small strings attached." Venerable the Blade replied in a hurry, "Mr. Su, you name it. You cannot abandon it when you reach the legendary rank, and you can only cancel the contract after keeping it for 10 years. If you want to cancel the contract earlier, after your rank becomes much higher, you must come to my store and cancel the contract with me as a witness. Can you promise me that?" Uddy's Venerable the Blade couldn't believe it was such a trivial matter. He had thought Suping was going to ask him for something more important. "Of course." Venerable the Blade answered without hesitation, "Mr. Su, you flatter me. This is a Beast King we are talking about. Even if I were at the legendary rank, I would have to rely heavily on it, not to mention that I have such a long way to go to reach the legendary rank. I cannot even find where I should start at the moment. Maybe, that will never happen to me." He was telling the truth. He was still young and could very likely reach the legendary rank, but he had seen so many talents who reached the peak of the titled rank very early in their lives but failed to reach the legendary rank toward the end of their lives. They could only die in old age and regret. That was just one rank up, but hope would never be found if one couldn't find the right direction. "You can do it. Don't be discouraged," Suping encouraged Venerable the Blade. Venerable the Blade answered with a smile. "Should I transfer the money now?" "Yep. No problem." Venerable the Blade wired Suping the money at once. He was sure that Suping was not deceiving him, even though he had not seen the battle pet yet. For the first time, the ringtone of money entering his account didn't sound so pleasant. The Swamp War Crocodile was not his battle pet, technically, but he felt a bit sad considering they had fought alongside each other. Suping heaved a sigh inwardly. He went outside and summoned the Swamp War Crocodile. Roar. The swamp war crocodile had a body that seemed to be cast in gold. Each of its scales was telling how violent it was, and a cold glare bounced off from the scales. The swamp war crocodile was so huge that it almost filled up the street. Although it wasn't the first time he had seen the swamp war crocodile, Venerable the Blade was not any less astonished than before. He had seen how Suping rode on the swamp war crocodile. But this day, that beast king was going to become his battle pet. With a glow in his eyes, Venerable the Blade eyed every inch of the swamp war crocodile. Suping went up and patted the Venerable the Blade. He said goodbye on his mind. The swamp war crocodile groaned. A glint of sadness rose in its eyes. The next second, Suping cut off the contract. As the contract disappeared, the confusion in the swamp war crocodile disappeared. Something was missing in its mind. Some shackles broke. The swamp war crocodile felt liberated. It could not help but cry into the sky. Roar. That roar was heard within a large area. Countless people were alerted, afraid that more wild beasts were coming. However, some of the repeating customers of the store were relieved once they recognized that the source of the noise was from the Pixie Pet Store. If the roar came from the store, then the beast was probably Suping's pet. Even if it were not his pet, he would have killed any intruding wild beast king. Outside the store, Suping said to Venerable the Blade, "You can sign the contract now." The roar made Venerable the Blade's blood boil. He could not wait but step over and sign a contract with the swamp war crocodile. The store's power contained the swamp war crocodile, which tried to resist Venerable the Blade's intention. The contract was finished smoothly. As the mark of the contract submerged into both their foreheads, an ancient link appeared within them. The swamp war crocodile quieted down. The bond of the contract meant that the swamp war crocodile could remain loyal to its master, and it would only want to hurt its master if its master had done something outrageous. "From now on, you will be my partner." Venerable the Blade patted the swamp war crocodile's scales tenderly. The bond of the contract told Venerable the Blade that this battle pet had a lonely soul. But from that moment on, such a lonely soul would be guarded by him. The swamp war crocodile lowered its head and groaned as a reply. Suping was glad that the contract had been established. "Take good care of it." "I will." Venerable the Blade put away the swamp war crocodile. "I won't waste time on saying useless words. Mr. Su, I will be on my way." "Sure." Suping nodded. Venerable the Blade cupped his fists at Suping and flew away. He summoned a flying battle pet and vanished into the horizon. Suping took his eye off from them. With Venerable the Blade and the swamp war crocodile, the Hancheng base city should be saved unless there were other heavenly kings hiding, lurking, like the situation that happened to the Longjian base city. Suping was about to go into his store when he saw that the little purple guy was still gazing at the street. Even the appearance of the swamp war crocodile had failed to distract that little guy for even a second. Suping went back to the store. Having sold the swamp war crocodile, the 200 million astral coins were converted into 2 million energy points. Suping let Tang Ryuan and Zhong Lingtong take care of the store while he went back to the pet room and told Joanna to keep an eye on the store. Since he was going to a world of dragons, Joanna had to stay. "Let's go." Suping pulled up the world of purple-blooded dragons and entered without hesitation. Joanna watched as the swirl in the air swallowed Suping. She hadn't fully believed in him when he was up, having promised that he would be able to take her to the Achaean divinity. She didn't fully believe him. But as time moved along, she was convinced that Suping would be able to deliver his promise. It was just that she had not gained enough points yet. She had become anxious to make more points. In the world of purple-blooded dragons. In a dark brown rocky jungle, with a whoosh, a tiny figure suddenly appeared and fell on the rock like a tiny ant. Suping looked up and around. Was that the world of purple-blooded dragons? A world of dragons? When Suping was looking around, he heard a reckless dragon roar suddenly coming from a distance behind a huge wood forest, a roar loud enough to shake the void. In the next moment, Suping saw a huge dragon with a body of several hundred meters soaring out from the giant wood forest in the distance. A pair of huge wings were spread out, covering the sky and blotting the sun, casting down a large shadow. Suping saw that in the dragon's mouth, there was a dragon's head, dripping blood. Chapter 533 Abilities, Dragon Mountain. Dragons feed on dragons. Suping could not believe what he had just seen. He quickly raised his astral shield as blood dripped down, so that it wouldn't fall on him. Otherwise, the smell of blood on him would invite unwanted troubles. As if feeling an energy disturbance, the huge dragon with a small dragon's head in its mouth turned its eyes down. A tiny figure leaped into the dragon's sight. The dragon looked away and flew out of air. Did the dragon just find me? I don't think it was interested in me. What a relief. He was able to tell that the dragon was as overwhelming as the other world heavenly king. It had to be at the fate state. The other world heavenly king might even be weaker than the dragon. After all, Dragons were the top creatures among all creatures in the world. Su Ping looked around. He was at a complete loss. Now tell me, how large is the realm? Where should I find the dragon origin? He had to speak up after some time passed, since the system didn't seem to detect his thoughts. The system does not provide GPS inside the cultivation sites. The host shall explore all by his lonesome. The system didn't hesitate in the slightest when it turned Su Ping down. Su Ping was speechless. He thought about it. That was a realm of dragons, but the dragons found there were generally of high rank. Those that had reached the legendary rank would have learned the language of other species. He could communicate with those dragons. He would probably find out where he should go if he asked around. He jumped down from the rock he was standing on and hurried toward the forest from where that dragon flew out from. The rocks and trees were so large that Su Ping felt he was like a puny insect found in the distant past. Soon, Su Ping found some dragon footprints and smelled the pungent odor of their droppings. Su Ping followed the traces of those footprints and the droppings in the forest like an experienced hunter. He saw some remains along the way. They had been left in the wild unattended. The flesh had been bitten off, leaving weathered bones. That primitive feeling stimulated Su Ping. He was constantly at the ready. Not long afterward, Su Ping suddenly saw a huge monster with extremely thick, yet proportionately thin legs, like steel needles. The wings on the back of that insect-like creature were translucent. With several blood-red eyes, the insect was extremely horrible, and the whole body exuded a fierce and bloody smell. The strange insect noticed Su Ping and flew towards him as if he were its prey. That creature was several meters long. It wasn't surprising that it would hunt a game like Su Ping. It approached Su Ping, leaving behind a very lifelike virtual image of where the insect was. Su Ping was almost fooled by this. Su Ping summoned the little skeleton as the insect moved closer. Instead of merging with the little skeleton, Su Ping told it to finish the insect by itself. The little skeleton's reaction was fast. It drew its blade the moment it received Su Ping's order. After a blur, the strange insect had been halved, blood gushed out. The strange insect was at the ocean state. While fast, it was still slower than the little skeleton. Beast Core. Su Ping dug out an energy crystal from the remains of the strange insect. The Beast Core was the thing that controlled energy flows inside the beast and would crystallize after some time. A Beast Core had a high pharmaceutical value and could also be administered to other beasts of the same family to attain stronger powers. If someone wasn't fond of Beast Cores, they could still be used as energy bombs. Beast Cores had a lethality close to that of small missiles and could hurt 7th-rank beasts. Su Ping put away the Beast Core. He was going to take it back to his store to sell it. That strange insect was of the Wind family. So, he could sell the Beast Core to someone with a pet of similar stock. Su Ping continued exploring after having finished the insect. He then understood that there were other creatures in the world of dragons, but they probably weren't commonly seen. At the same time, Su Ping took his time to check the little skeleton. Su Ping had not had the time to inspect the little skeleton carefully after its recovery. He had been busy with battles and other matters. He cast an identification spell to read the little skeleton's information. Little skeleton property, pet of the demon family rank, the intermediate position of the 9th rank combat strength, 39 aptitude, above average. Talent skill, elementary agility talent bloodline skills, bone demon, eternal revenant, descent of the bone king abilities mastered, regeneration, undead enslaving, advanced saberplay, puppetry, demon whispers, nightmare space, punishment of sins, darkness teleportation, realm of death. Su Ping was deeply impressed. The little skeleton's aptitude, combat strength, and new abilities had astounded him. The little skeleton was merely at the 7th rank before, with an average aptitude. But, once it had completely consumed the blood crystal, it jumped up by 2 ranks. From the 7th to the 9th rank. It would have taken years at a normal rate for the little skeleton to climb those 2 ranks, to say the least. The more shocking thing was the little skeleton's combat strength, which was at 39. In usual cases, a 9th rank beast would only have a combat strength of 9 points. But the little skeleton's combat strength was 39 points. Even a legendary rank creature at the void state would merely have a combat strength of 20 points. The little skeleton's combat strength was nearly double in comparison. The little skeleton had also acquired 3 bloodline skills, which came as a complete surprise to Su Ping. It was true that the pet had gained the Skeleton King's bloodline, but even the average members of the Skeleton King's family would merely have 1 or 2 bloodline skills. The extremely talented would have 3 or 4 bloodline skills. Since the little skeleton was able to acquire 3 bloodline skills as the new bloodline had just been awakened, the little skeleton was more than gifted. No wonder its aptitude didn't drop. That was to say that, of all the creatures with the Skeleton King's bloodline, the little skeleton was above average. Of course, it would be basically impossible for the other common skeletons to achieve such results. The little skeleton merely achieved such accomplishments because it had been trained in a special way, while leveraging the Skeleton King's bloodline. It would be like asking for the moon to have the little skeleton have such strength without the Skeleton King's bloodline. The little skeleton should be still comparable to the void state. I wonder how far away it is from the fate state. Suping asked himself. As of that moment, the little skeleton's combat strength was higher than Joanna's. Of course, that would be the girl who was working for him, not Joanna's original self. Joanna's original self was a truly powerful being, even taking the universe as a whole, someone that Suping couldn't even imagine. The combat strength of her employee self was 29.6 points. The little skeleton's combat strength was almost 10 points higher. That being said, Suping was fully aware that his employee's major focus was on her mind. She could have improved her combat strength at any time if she wanted to. That merging must be the Bone Demon skill. Suping understood that the 3 bloodline skills had to be the core skills for the little skeleton. There were simple descriptions of each of the 3 bloodline skills. The first was the Bone Demon, which was the one that enabled the little skeleton to merge with Suping. In that state, the little skeleton would share all of its strength with Suping and the pet itself would become an unbreakable armor for him. That skill didn't mean much for the wild skeleton kings, but it was truly meaningful for those that entered into contracts with humans. That was why skeleton kings were favored as battle pets by battle pet warriors at the star rank. The second bloodline skill, Eternal Revenant, would enable the little skeleton to draw dark energy from the void to recover its body no matter how bad it had been wounded. The little skeleton would be practically unkillable. When a creature died, it would usually be pulled into the realm of the undead. But when a skeleton king was in a fatal state and the realm of the undead tried to suck it in, the skeleton king would be able to draw energy from the realm of the undead and come back to life. Almost immortal. Of course, as informed as Suping was, he was able to tell that such a skill wasn't infallible. Some creatures were able to freeze time and space, and isolate all energy. In such a case, using that skill would be more than difficult. He would rather wait for his death if he were to run into such a creature. That would make things easier for him. As for the last of the 3 bloodline skills, the Descent of the Bone King was an assault skill. Descent of the Bone King was able to summon the forefather of all skeleton kings and leverage the forefather's strength to wield outstanding powers. Only the forefathers of major species that had star-rank bloodlines could have created such skills, leaving such skills to help their offspring. Apart from the 3 bloodline skills, the other skills were quite stunning. The long list of new skills dazzled him. How amazing. The little skeleton had become impressive in every way after that awakening. No wonder it had attained such combat strength. It wasn't an exaggeration to say it had been blessed with too many skills. I wonder what the best of the skeleton kings would be like, Suping wondered. The little skeleton was at the 9th rank but had a combat strength comparable to the void state. As such, the pet was able to kill average void state creatures. That was shocking. Right then, Suping heard a noise. Roar. Suping came back to his senses. He was bold enough to stop and check the little skeleton because he knew he could return to life at the cultivation site. That roar evidently belonged to a dragon. Suping took the little skeleton and found their way forward. Soon, he heard an earth-shaking noise coming from a certain point in the forest. It seemed that a battle was in progress. Suping and the little skeleton stole their way over. Suping could then see that 2 dragons were fighting. One of the dragons had purple scales, quite elegant, while ferocious at the same time. The other dragon, clearly from another breed, had dark green scales. The dragon had 2 thick legs and 4 shorter paws, but each claw was quite sharp. The 2 dragons were of different size. The one with the purple scales was more than 200 meters tall, while the other was less than 100 meters tall. Right then, while the latter was very aggressive, it wasn't gaining an upper hand in that battle. Another hunt. Suping was startled. The dragons were more violent than he had expected. First, he had seen a dragon eating another dragon, then he witnessed a dragon hunting another dragon. Suping kept quiet. Both dragons were at the legendary rank. Suping was planning to wait for one of them to be defeated, he would then capture the winner to ask about the dragon origin. The battle was intense and neither dragon had noticed the uninvited party. That, or, even if they had noticed the presence of a human male, they wouldn't care because Suping seemed to be too weak. He wasn't even at the legendary rank. Compared to the 2 dragons, at best, Suping was a puny bug. Boom. With a blast, the dragon with the dark green scales was swept away. The one with the purple scales bit the former's neck, the former let out a cry of pain. That was a cry filled with desperation and it carried a begging tone. However, cold-blooded hunters would never let go of their game. Soon, the cry died down and the dragon with the purple scales tore off its game's head. Blood gushed out. That primitive and bloody view startled Suping. He lurked in waiting. That purple-scaled dragon tossed the dragon head aside and then feasted on the neck of the dragon corpse. The blood tainted its neck, its fangs, and its mouth, which made the purple-scaled dragon all the more horrifying. Then, the dragon turned around toward the place where Suping was hiding. The dragon opened its mouth, energy began to gather in its mouth and a beam was aiming at Suping. He was not surprised, he told the little skeleton to use Bone Demon at once. Boom! An incredible blast of energy continuously surged out from Suping. He was getting an urge to cry into the sky, but he pushed down that desire. Red glow was bursting out from his eyes. He dashed over toward the purple-scaled dragon. The dragon was taken aback after witnessing how Suping had changed into a different person. The dragon appeared to be frightened upon noticing the energy bursting out from that human. The dragon groaned, as a threat and demonstration of its power. However, Suping was immune to the dragon's roar. He would use the roar from the Heaven Expansion Dragon as background music to relax. At the moment, Suping was charging toward the dragon like a bullet and he punched with his fist of Exorcist. Boom! The purple dragon gathered its energy to fight back, but regardless of that, Suping landed a punch on its wing, piercing right through. Suping rushed on and jumped onto the dragon's neck. He placed his foot on that neck, ready to stomp on it forcefully at any time. Behave if you want to live. Suping sent a mental message to the dragon, carrying a cold tone. The purple dragon stared at Suping in fear and fury but didn't take any action. It understood Suping's message, he heard a message back soon after. What do you want? You can have my food. The dragon used the language of dragons but the message was translated into the human language as it was mentally conveyed, so that Suping could understand. I don't want your food. Suping snorted. What do you know about the dragon origin? Dragon origin? That question was unexpected. Why? I see that you do know about it. Suping pressed the dragon. Where is it? Do you know where to find it? Show me the way. The purple-scaled dragon shouted in alarm. Dragon origin is the source for us purple blood dragons. Why are you, a lowlife, asking about it? Purple blood dragons? Suping looked at the dragon's scales and remembered the name of that cultivation site. The system had once told him that there would be a major species in each dragon realm. The purple blood dragons seemed to be the owners of this realm. Show me the way since you know about it. Or else, you're going to be just like that one over there. Suping threatened the dragon. The dragon felt humiliated. It was cooking up a vicious plan. The dragon origin was at a place that held the utmost importance for purple blood dragons. That person would be hurling himself willingly into the trap. The dragon swallowed down the insult and promised Suping, fine, I'll show you the way. Suping jumped onto the dragon's back. He turned his palm and the bone blade that the little skeleton had once picked up from the chaotic realm of the undead appeared in his hand. He stuck the blade against the dragon's back. Move it. The bone blade was much sharper than he had expected. The dark energy around the blade was able to cut through the hard dragon scales with ease. Suping put his hand on the handle as if it were the steering wheel. If he wanted, he could immediately cut the dragon open. After feeling that cold sensation, the frightened purple dragon flapped its wings and flew away. The dragon was only able to rely on merely one wing, since one of its wings had been broken by Suping. Soon after, the dragon had submerged deep into the clouds. The massive forest was becoming smaller and smaller. Suping was finally able to have a clear view of the realm. On the ground, in addition to the endless forest, there were winding mountains, swamps, and a primitive mountain peak standing in the forest. The whole world was barren. Wind swept across the land. Suping spurred the dragon forward. They soared above the exotic land. He soon heard some dragons' cries. It seemed that several dragons were battling against something and were crying for help. The dragon that Suping stood on was about to cry out when he snorted. The dragon felt a chill running down its spine. Although furious, the dragon did the smart thing of foregoing the idea of shouting for help. They pressed on. They passed by mountain peaks and extensive forests, including several large rivers in which some things were moving about. Suping had a clear view. There were some bones and remains by the side of the river. After a long while, Suping began to see a gigantic mountain. That was indeed a huge mountain. Even while being in that world of dragons, such a mountain was able to pierce into the clouds. Those large peaks and forests he had seen were like small blades of grass in front of that colossal mountain. Suping was able to feel something quite stressful coming off from that mountain. Suping saw that other purple dragons in the sky were also hurrying toward that mountain. Is that where the dragon origin is found? Suping questioned. The dragon answered, that is a sacred place for us and yes, that is where the dragon origin is found. Suping nodded. He gazed at the mountain for a long while. The dragon took him closer and closer to the mountain until he was able to see the rocks and boulders on the mountain. The dragon landed by the hillside. There were many purple blood dragons gathered there, as well as other dragons, which was a surprise for Suping. All of those dragons were even more intimidating than the other world heavenly king. Suping had a feeling that he was standing in front of star-rank creatures. What are the dragons doing here? Suping asked. He thought he was going to see another view of a dragon eating dragons. But wouldn't the other dragons serve themselves as food for the purple blood dragons? They're here to pay tribute, and some of the dragons are after the dragon origin, like you, the dragon answered with contempt. As they landed, the other purple dragons noticed the person standing on a dragon. All the dragons became livid with rage. How audacious! How dare you ride on one of us? What is that? Kill him! The purple blood dragons bellowed. Dragons of other kinds eyed Suping in amazement. What creature would dare to ride on a purple blood dragon? The dragon that was still under Suping's feet cried out for help at once. Help me! This lowlife snuck on me and kidnapped me. He is after the dragon origin. Suping glanced over the other purple blood dragons. All of them were at the legendary rank, but their strengths varied. He didn't wish to do things the hard way. He hopped off from the dragon, stood in the air, and cupped his fists. I am Suping, a human being. I am here to ask for the dragon origin. I hope you can let me have a share, and I'm more than willing to trade that with anything. Shut up. A bulky purple blood dragon stepped forward and shouted at Suping, you insulted one of us. And how do you even dare ask for the dragon origin? You're not worthy to speak of the dragon's origin. Guards, finish him. The other purple blood dragons were all riled up. The dragons of other kinds could not believe what they had just heard. They were dragons and they could use the dragon origin, but there was nothing about Suping that was even remotely connected to dragons. Why would he ask for the dragon origin? Not to mention that he had kidnapped a purple blood dragon. Human? I think I've heard of such things. They're creatures from the past. I thought they had gone extinct. Do you mean the vermin that were once here in the distant past? The dragons of other kinds whispered to each other. While those dragons were quite powerful and even more so than the purple blood dragons present, they were afraid to take any impulsive actions, and were quite respectful to the purple blood dragons. Chapter 531 Fighting Violence with Violence. The furious purple dragons had surrounded Suping while the other dragons continued their discussion. Roar! The purple blood dragons that were standing the closest to Suping rushed toward him, approaching him with tremendous force. Suping frowned. He lifted his fist at once, pouring astral powers into his arm. The fist of Exorcist surged with a golden glow. Boom! Space was pushed into layers. A dark gray space appeared along with a loud noise, and energy was being sucked into it, appearing and disappearing constantly. The purple blood dragons that were charging towards Suping were pushed away by the impact. They were unhurt because Suping had pulled his punches. Hold your horses. I'm not your enemy, Suping declared. The dragons were startled by the force of that punch. He can crush the void. Is he at the heavenly dragon rank? How can it be? He's just a pathetic creature. He is weak, and that is obvious. The dragons discussed, surprised. Dragons regarded as heavenly dragons were the top-tier predators in that dragon world. Even so, that doesn't make his behavior excusable. How dare a pathetic creature like you crave for our dragon origin? Prepare to die. The bulky purple blood dragon took a step forward and coldly looked down at Suping from a height. The strong surge of energy around the dragon created some grayish marks around it. Those marks were extended like many tentacles, cutting up space. The dragon was able to manipulate space just by emitting energy, which had astounded all the other dragons. Go to hell. The dragon did nothing else but lift its paws, and yet, space had been crushed. In the meantime, a shocking force suddenly rushed out through the nothingness. Suping observed. Even though he didn't detect any energy coming at him, the rich experience he had gained from other battles told him that danger was coming. Suping vanished on the spot and reappeared several hundred meters away. The next second, the blur he had left was torn apart by the dragon's claw. The blur was not the only thing crushed. The space around the blur had also collapsed. The dragon was unhappy since Suping had been able to avoid its attack. The dragon furiously unleashed more energy. A green palm with a dark purple hue was generated. That wasn't the hand of a dragon, but of some ancient creature. That palm was more than 100 meters tall, which vanished into the void. Suping suddenly felt space around him had been frozen, as if the air had turned into cement. He had been immobilized on the spot. At the same time, the void around him cracked and the huge hand that had vanished emerged again, and he was right in the middle of that palm. The fingers closed, trying to crush Suping to death. Suping unleashed his astral powers. The force field appeared behind him and many demons and fiends were inside. Suddenly, two demons broke free from some unspeakable shackles, pounced at Suping and grabbed his shoulders to pull themselves out. With the help of the two demons, the red glow in Suping's eyes shone ever so brightly and he gained more strength. Suping yelled, broke free from the palm, and charged at the purple blood dragon. Take this. See, Suping bellowed. Boom. The glow from the fist was as glaring as the sun. The purple blood dragon was taken aback. Su Ping's punch was too fast and too vicious that space was collapsing. The dragon didn't think it could take the hit. Still, the dragon lifted its limbs out of instinct, ready to use a bloodline defensive skill. There came a loud noise and tremor on the mountain. Dust was stirred up, blotting everyone's view before it was blown away by the wind. Su Ping was trying to catch his breath while floating in the air. In front of him was the purple blood dragon, which remained unhurt, but there was a pit with a diameter of several hundred meters next to the dragon. "I am here for the dragon origin, not to make myself your enemy," Su Ping said, panting. Again, he had shown mercy. The purple blood dragon was in a daze. The pit next to it was an eyesore. The large dragon took a few steps back. Su Ping was about to start the negotiation that he thought was going to happen, when he heard the purple blood dragon screaming, set into formation. "Kill him! Kill him!" All the other purple blood dragons screamed in agreement. The purple blood dragons began to unleash some kind of purple aura that was interconnected to form a certain ancient formation. The dragon that was able to generate the most profound purple aura was the one that struck Su Ping. The dragon stayed at the center of the formation, gaining more momentum than before. "You're asking for the dragon origin? How dare you? Go to hell!" That purple blood dragon shouted. All the purple aura poured back into the dragon, which was growing larger and larger, until it reached a height of close to 500 meters. The dragon waved its paws as the energy gathered around its chest. That dark purple palm appeared again, only this time, even the forearm was visible. Some mysterious patterns were engraved on the forearm. That palm seemed to be strong enough to topple the sky. It was pressing down on Su Ping. Su Ping was speechless. He had pulled his punches twice, but still, it didn't turn him a chance to negotiate peacefully. Su Ping clenched his hands as he stared at the mighty palm pressing on him. He understood that negotiating was out of the question. The only way out was resorting to violence. He would resort to so much violence that the dragons would kneel in front of him. "Ah!" Su Ping dashed toward the sky, shouting, burning his blood to unleash great powers. Behind him, the third demon climbed out from the force field. Boom! The demon added even more energy to Su Ping. He shouted as he charged toward that palm. Boom! That palm came down to crush Su Ping. But Su Ping threw himself toward that palm. While carrying a golden glow, the fist of Exorcist bumped into the palm. The palm was incredibly tough. Even though it had been slowed down by the fist of Exorcist, the palm was still whooshing down. Space would freeze wherever the palm passed. Su Ping felt his energy was draining. While that feeling was subtle, he was getting a sense that time was being robbed away from him. That was a star rank skill. Boom! Su Ping smashed himself right into the palm. Undoubtedly, his body was crushed and he was reduced into a mist of blood. The little skeleton that he had merged with was also turned to pieces. The different thing was that the little skeleton had survived. It was regenerated in the void. But at the same time, Su Ping re-emerged on the spot as well. The palm had already gone past the area by the time he came back to life, whooshing down toward the ground behind Su Ping. Su Ping didn't even look back at that palm. He summoned the little skeleton. As white bones entangled him, he was able to burn his blood once more. The energy was surging out of him as if it would never be exhausted. "Come on!" Su Ping bellowed as he charged toward the purple blood dragon. The smug smile was erased from the purple dragon's face when Su Ping reappeared in the air. This had completely shocked the dragon. The rest of the dragons were staring in bewilderment. The trembling in their scales spoke of their terror. Was that traveling back in time? But the ability to manipulate time was something that could only be mastered by creatures at the star rank. Boom! Making the most of the time window created by the purple dragon's shock, Su Ping reached the dragon and punched at the soft spot that was between its jaw and its neck. The scales fell off, revealing a deep, bloody wound. Chapter 532 I will make you the best of dragons. Drop dead. Su Ping howled. This time, he showed no mercy. As he pierced into that deep wound, Su Ping exhausted his strength and landed a final punch at the dragon's skull. Bang! Fear emerged in the purple blood dragon's eyes. The dragon was about to open its mouth to beg for mercy when its head was crushed, brains spilling out. The other purple blood dragons were just as astonished as they were furious. Su Ping had killed one of them. Right there on the sacred mountain. That was their home base. But a creature had gone there and killed one of their kind. An unforgivable sin. Roar! The dragons bellowed one after the other. The purple blood dragons unleashed many legendary skills. The energy was boiling in the air, space was turbulent, and chaotic energy storms were condensing on Su Ping's head like a purple cloud. But there was violent energy inside, and any strand of that energy was enough to easily kill a legendary rank creature. All the purple blood dragons' energy was pooled together. That was their combined strength. Kill him. He shall be buried with our deceased kin. All the purple blood dragons were screaming. That purple cloud came whooshing down on Su Ping, It had a force that was enough to reduce him into dust particles. Suping looked up at the cloud, his eyes blood red. He no longer had to worry about outworking himself or burning too much energy while being at the cultivation site. He was shouting, begging, craving for more energy, more. I'll burn my blood but give me strength. Roar. Behind him, the Skeleton King appeared. It was shouting, with a voice that came from hundreds of millions of years before. The white bones around Suping were contracting, squeezing more and more blood out of him. He was soaked in blood but he had gained more energy than ever before. He sacrificed his blood in exchange for power and he gathered all his strength on his fist. Break. Suping screamed. The fist of Exorcist was taking effect. He punched at the space above his head. While carrying the golden glow, the fist was like a rising sun that was smashing into the mass of purple energy. Boom. The ground shook but made no sound. A mushroom cloud appeared in the sky and again, there was no noise. That glaring light vanished the instant it appeared because a black hole was manifested in the sky, as if a portal to a different world had been opened up. The blood-soaked person was diving toward the purple blood dragons on the ground. Go to hell. Suping shouted as he punched out. He was able to crack the space with every punch. Those purple blood dragons were either at the ocean state or the void state. Even though they were pooling their strength, they were unable to withstand the fierce punch. They were all instantly wounded. Bang. 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 Suping dashed around madly to attack the purple blood dragons. None of them were left unhurt. They were either severely wounded or killed on the spot. The dragons of other kinds were shivering in fear at the sight of that mad person. No other creature had ever had the guts to make such a scene at that holy mountain. He had killed so many purple blood dragons. Is he going to finish them all? As they stared at the demonic human, the dragons wondered if they should lend a hand to the purple dragons. While they still pondered over that choice, Suping had already finished more than a dozen purple blood dragons. The void state beasts tried to put up shields, but even that was not enough to stop them from being killed by Suping. Before he knew it, Suping had attained the Fist of Exorcist's second level. Adding his base strength, he could be comparable to the Fate state. Crushing dragons at the void state was a piece of cake for him. I'll finish them all. While Suping had previously shown mercy to those purple blood dragons, he didn't think twice to kill them at the moment. He spared no strength. He didn't mind the counter-attacks, nor did he try to defend. Soon, a purple blood dragon seized a perfect chance and crushed Suping's head. Still, he came back to life the next second. He was at his prime state again. White bones climbed over him. He burned his blood to increase his strength for the killing. You are the one. Don't you run. Suping noticed the purple blood dragon he had ridden on. Suping wore his black hair down and he was soaked in blood. He forced his way forward, pushing away from the other dragons and stepping toward that particular dragon. That purple blood dragon was so scared that its scales were turning pale. The coldness was long gone from that pair of dragon eyes, fear had replaced it. The dragon had never imagined that the human could be that crazy. Instead of apologizing, he had started a killing spree. That lowly being was a creature that had exceeded its wildest imaginations. The most confounding thing of all was that Suping was able to revive. 2 times he had died and yet returned to life on the spot. The dragon had started to wonder if Suping was at the star rank. If so, Suping would have simply his ability to manipulate time and none of them would have had the ability to land a strike back. You! Don't you come over! Suping was moving closer with vigorous strides. The purple blood dragon was no longer able to push down its fear. Never did it think that it would be afraid of an outside creature and would beg for mercy, right at their home base. Go to hell. Suping replied to that call for mercy with a bellow. He stepped across the void and stomped on the dragon's back. It was as if Suping were carrying a mountain on his back. The dragon was pinned to the ground and then Suping punched the dragon's head. The purple blood dragon's cry barely came out when its head was split up. The warm brains were spilled over Suping. He didn't even put up his astral shield. He was a fully unleashed wild beast. After killing that dragon, Suping turned around and glared at the others. The purple blood dragons that were eager to fight Suping were completely intimidated at the moment. They never thought that such an unworthy being would ever deter them. Them, the dragons. Of all the creatures in the universe, they were the best ones, the kings. But a human was making them feel afraid. Astonishment was not the only common sensation, humiliation was also felt. And yet, upon seeing the blood-stained human and the brains of their peers, the anger that was formerly inspired by the humiliation had instantly died down. That was not a human, it was a demon that had crawled out from hell. The dragons were stepping backward. They would wait for any of the big shots that Suping had alerted to arrive and execute him. The dragons from other breeds were staring in pure astonishment as Suping stood in the pool of blood while no other dragon dared to approach him. How shocking this was, nothing of the sort had ever happened in that place. They would have never believed it if they hadn't witnessed it with their own eyes. Tell me. Where is the dragon origin? Suping glared at a purple blood dragon in front of him. The purple blood dragon was shivering, it was clearly intimidated. Lowlife, you won't have your way for long. Wait for our saint to come. That will be the time you die. But you won't live long enough to even say that. Suping tore up the space and reached the purple blood dragon directly. He was merely the size of a single dragon scale, and yet the dragon trembled even more violently as Suping stood next to him. Boom. Suping instantly threw a punch, and a dazzling light illuminated the pupils of that purple blood dragon. Light flooded in the next moment, and the huge dragon head burst open. There was broken space around that crushed head. Even the space had been torn open. Suping turned over and shouted at another purple blood dragon. Where is the dragon origin? Tell me. The dragon was shivering after seeing the miserable death of its peer. The one that Suping had just killed had been at the void state, while this new dragon was merely at the ocean state. Since not even a stronger one stood a chance, the dragon at the ocean state felt that death was at its door. While Suping was a tiny human being, he was the gravest danger in the whole world. The dragon could not help but step back. The dragon origin is at the peak of the mountain. Go ahead if death is what you desire. The dragon's voice was trembling. The peak? Suping stopped and gazed at the mountaintop. There was a staircase that led to the mountaintop. Without further ado, Suping flew toward the peak. Completely appalled, no purple blood dragon stepped forward to stop him. Several thousand meters into the sky, Suping suddenly felt some force was pressing down on him. He made an effort to go higher and that force was becoming stronger. Having no other choice, Suping descended to the ground. The mysterious force disappeared as he landed on that staircase. He was able to reach the 7,000 meters mark. I cannot believe he just resisted the rule set up by our Lord. Utterly inconceivable. The dragons, be it purple-blooded or not, were equally shocked at what Suping had done. There were rules in force on the mountain. From the hillside and above, creatures that weren't purple-blood dragons were barred from flying, and that was one of the rules. Suping had ascended up to 7,000 meters even when such a rule was in effect, which was unimaginable. The dragons at the fate state wouldn't have been able to do so. Whoosh! As the force confining him disappeared, Suping dashed as he went up the staircase. The bolts of lightning surrounding his feet generated many afterimages. Suping pressed on with speed and agility as if he were nothing but a puff of smoke. He was running even faster than he was flying. There must be a dragon at the star rank at the top of the mountain. Suping thought of what the purple blood dragons had just mentioned. The mountaintop was hiding in the clouds. The mountain was simply too high for him to see it completely. Regardless, Suping was not going to give up. Suping's blood was burning and the little skeleton kept on transmitting strength to him so that he was able to use his full speed at all times. He was traveling much faster than sound, at a speed of 2,000 to 3,000 meters per second. Titled battle pet warriors would be unable to see him in this state. However, even with such a fast speed, it took him over a dozen minutes before he arrived at the mountaintop. Boom! Something whooshed over when his foot landed on the last step of the stairs. There was a tremor, and Suping was almost knocked off the staircase. Fortunately, thanks to his rich experience, Suping managed to stabilize himself. He gazed into the distance. On the horizon of that vast and flat land lay a purple lake. The purple water was giving off a mysterious aroma, and Suping also sensed a strong presence of dragons. Suping quickly inquired about this to the system. Is that the dragon origin? That is correct. Suping nodded and sighed gently. Finally, he had found it. The dragon origin was right in front of him. Suping took a deep breath. He peeled his gaze off from the lake and glanced at the many figures on the sides that could not be ignored. All of them were purple blood dragons. There were 8 of them in total. Each of them was larger than the ones Suping had seen at the hillside. They were nearly 500 meters tall, larger than the dragon at the fate state that Suping had exerted himself to slay. There was something immensely powerful about those purple blood dragons. And yet, what he had learned from the demigod burial told him that the 8 were at the very peak of the fate state and not the star rank. They lacked a certain aura of the star rank. Soon after, Suping saw another purple blood dragon he did not notice just then. That was one over 1,000 meters long and with dusty purple scales. The purple blood dragon was lying on top its limbs by the lake. The dragon kept its eyes half open, still, it pierced Suping with a stare that was void of all emotions. Suping felt a chill running down his spine. Even though it was just a stare, it made him want to shiver. Star rank. There was no question. That purple blood dragon was at the star rank. However scared he was, Suping didn't step back. He had made it thus far. That was the final step. How do I revive the Inferno dragon with a dragon origin? Suping asked the system. To that, the system explained, Let the Inferno Dragon's soul soak in the Dragon Origin, and the Dragon Origin will help the Inferno Dragon rebuild its body. The Dragon Origin's nature is kind to all dragons. That explained it. Suping took a step forward. Boom. An intangible force was in effect. One of the dragons used a skill that had not only confined the space around Suping, but also turned the air into a hammer that was coming down on Suping. Suping unleashed all of his strength to withstand the blow, but cracks had started to show up on the white bones. How can it be? One of the purple blood dragons resting on the right side wore a surprised look. It was astounding that Suping had survived that strike. You lowlife! How dare you break into our sacred mountain? Your entire race shall be exterminated. That purple blood dragon made a verdict. Hardly had its voice faded away when space around Suping was split up. From the cracks came many swords formed by the void. Suping hurried to wave his fist. However, those swords were incredibly sharp and fast. They had cut him into pieces within a mere second. Bang! Blood rained down. However, the blood rain disappeared the next second, and Suping came back into being on the spot. That is not right. As Suping's revival came into effect, the purple blood dragons opened their eyes wide. Surprise was seen inside their formerly calm eyes. Time travel? The purple blood dragon that was resting by the lake squinted its eyes. That should be a skill mastered only by those at the star rank or above, but the human was definitely not one of them. I don't think the human himself used the skill. Did he use some sort of artifact? The purple blood dragon's eyes glimmered with greed as they discussed the possibility. Such a treasure. It would be appealing to them as well. Indeed, you must have something up your sleeve for daring to come up here after what you did down there. But, no matter what ace cards you have, you will have to hand them over to us. The purple blood dragon that landed the previous strike on Suping snarled. Once it made its intention clear, swords made from the void snuck out from the space around Suping again. He disregarded the swords. He had merged with the little skeleton and started to run at full speed. His goal was to reach the Dragon Origin. No matter what the cost was, he had to get the Inferno Dragon into the Dragon Origin. Bang! Those sharp void swords were cutting Suping up. That purple blood dragon was at the peak of the fate state, and all it needed was an inspiration to reach the star rank. That dragon was much more powerful than the dragon Suping had encountered at the hillside. Revival. He resumed his charge as soon as he revived. How? The purple blood dragon was unable to believe Suping's revival could be repeated. The dragon conjured up void swords right in front of Suping. The dragon was going to completely annihilate him. Go away! Suping screamed as he punched out. He ignored the strikes coming at him from behind and he pushed his way forward. With a bang and a shake, the swords of void were crushed. But the sword light that remained did leave many marks on the white bones, as well as the areas unprotected by the white bones. Suping was once again drenched in blood. Regardless, Suping dashed on. That purple blood dragon was full of wrath. The dragon produced many swords yet again. This time, Suping was unable to survive. The moment he died, he came back to life again and continued his effort of moving along. Each time, before he was killed, he was able to move several thousand meters ahead. He died, time after time, but he was able to send the Inferno Dragon closer to the Dragon Origin. The purple blood dragon was livid with rage. It was unethical for anyone to employ such dishonest methods. It had killed Suping a dozen times over, but he came back to life every time. Enough was enough. He's trying to get to the Dragon Origin. Stop him. He is just a lowlife. We cannot allow him to soil the Dragon Origin. The purple blood dragons readied themselves, having realized what Suping intended to do. Several purple blood dragons at the peak of the fate state attacked Suping simultaneously. He died yet again, and of course, he came back to life yet again. As soon as he could breathe again, he would merge with the little skeleton and charge forth for a few thousand meters. Bang! Unsurprisingly, he walked to his death. Damn him. How can he come back to life so many times? What kind of artifact can that be? The purple blood dragons were hopping mad. Their strikes were relentless, and so were Suping's revivals. Their strikes couldn't be said to be useless because they managed to kill Suping every time. It was just that killing him was no good. Like a haunting ghost, his evil life force lingered on, completely ignoring the dragons. After over 100 deaths, finally, Suping reached the Dragon Origin. Right then, the purple blood dragon at the star rank said something. You're not a dragon. Why do you insist on getting the Dragon Origin? The purple blood dragons stopped their futile efforts and eyed Suping coldly. I want to bring my dragon pet back to life. I have to borrow the Dragon Origin, Suping stated. Suping was surprised after having answered that question. It wasn't done out of his own free will. That dragon was able to make him speak without himself being aware. Dragon pet? The old dragon calmly asked, is it one of us? Let me see. Maybe, I just might let you use some of the dragon origin to bring your dragon back to life. Su Ping summoned the Inferno Dragon after a moment of hesitation. There wasn't much to do at this point. The Inferno Dragon came out in that soul nurturer. After a surge of red smoke, the Inferno Dragon's image showed up on that translucent blade of grass. The Inferno Dragon was startled to see so many powerful dragons gathered in one place. Is that an Inferno Dragon? I think so. An Inferno Dragon was not what the purple-blooded dragons had expected to see. All of them supposed that Su Ping was going to summon one of their kind, or a dragon of the other major species here. Little did they know that the dragon Su Ping had spoken of was one that didn't even have a legendary rank bloodline. Inferno dragons did call the realm of purple blood dragons home, but they were counted among the weak residents. As far as the purple blood dragons were concerned, Inferno dragons were nothing worth mentioning, and they never even saw Inferno dragons as their own kind. The old dragon was visibly surprised as well. Why would Su Ping use such a pathetic dragon as his pet when he had such powers? Do you honestly want to use our dragon origin to bring this sorry little thing back to life? That is not worthy of the dragon name. I wouldn't even take it as my food. It's too dirty. The purple blood dragons didn't hide their contempt. The old dragon had cooled down. The surprise was ebbing out of its face. Is that the dragon you want to bring back to life? What the other dragon said made Su Ping clench his fists. He looked up at the old dragon and replied, indeed. You have so much dragon origin. If you can let me take a share, I am willing to trade with something of an equal value. You will have nothing to lose, that won't be necessary. The old dragon sneered. All of a sudden, the Inferno Dragon put on a painful look and the soul was ripped into nothingness. Su Ping could not believe that. Su Ping felt even the passage of time had stopped when the soul disappeared right in front of his eyes. He could not feel a thing. He lowered his head. His body was shaking uncontrollably. All the purple blood dragons should be wiped out. He mumbled. He did not shout, nor cry, it seemed that he was talking to himself. He requested for the Inferno Dragon to return to life. The dispersed soul of the Inferno Dragon came back. Of course, it came back as a soul. The Inferno Dragon was still Su Ping's battle pet and could be revived in that cultivation site. What? The old dragon, as well as the other purple blood dragons, were shocked and even frightened upon seeing the revival. Su Ping was not the only one who could come back to life. Even his pet could. They were killing Su Ping again and again, but the little skeleton was not a creature that could be killed. As such, the dragons had not realized that Su Ping was able to bring his pet back to life. Go. Go into the dragon origin, Su Ping told the Inferno Dragon. The Inferno Dragon floated toward the lake. The old dragon snarled. How dare you? Psing. The huge dragon stood up. The dusty color faded away from its scales, which were shining in all radiance. The old dragon didn't strike the Inferno Dragon. Since Su Ping was able to revive it, no amount of strikes would be of any use. The old dragon merely had the intention to show that such a pathetic dragon was unworthy of entering the dragon origin. The Inferno Dragon didn't dare to go forward, all because of the large dragon's deterrent force. Even though it was just a soul, the Inferno Dragon was shuddering. The Inferno Dragon had met many star-ranked creatures with Su Ping, and in the chaotic realm of the undead, they had encountered things that they couldn't even describe. The Inferno Dragon was not a timid dragon. However, at this moment, the old dragon was directly targeting the Inferno Dragon. That was not the same. The deep-rooted authority made the Inferno Dragon grin with dread, as if it were facing one of its deeply ingrained fears. The old dragon laughed with disdain. Is that what your dragon can do? Su Ping opened his eyes wide and shouted hysterically, keep moving. Keep moving. Do not be afraid. One day, I will make you the most powerful dragon in this entire world. Chapter 533 Fight the Impossible Fight. I will make you the most powerful dragon in the entire world. Su Ping's voice echoed at the mountaintop. The Inferno Dragon heard it, loud and clear, and gradually stopped shaking. It turned around and gazed at Su Ping. Suddenly, the Inferno Dragon understood it all, why Su Ping was so angry. Onward. The Inferno Dragon made up its mind and took a determined step toward the dragon origin. How can you? The fact that the Inferno Dragon was able to resist its deterrence came as a shock to the old dragon. A glint of coldness rose in the old dragon's eyes. Humphrey. The old dragon snorted. As the space trembled, the Inferno Dragon was crushed into pieces. But soon after, the Inferno Dragon was brought back from death. This time, before Su Ping said anything, the Inferno Dragon went ahead and pressed on toward the dragon origin. Keep going. Keep going forward. The Inferno Dragon could see nothing but the dragon origin. Going toward the dragon origin was an order from Su Ping and what he hoped for him. Roar. The Inferno Dragon let out a shout that was heard only in ancient times. Even though the Inferno Dragon was unable to master that roar completely, it did carry some force. The purple blood dragons came to a start. They glued their surprised glances at the Inferno Dragon. The old star rank dragon was stunned to find a force close to the star rank in that roar. Where did the dragon learn it? Another question was how the dragon had learned it. It wouldn't have copied that roar after listening to it several times. The Inferno Dragon would have had to listen to that every day, or have a very high power of understanding. There's something of interest in you, but it doesn't change anything, you petty thing, the old dragon asserted. The dragon altered the space and the Inferno Dragon was only able to travel several meters before it died. Of course, the next second, the Inferno Dragon would return to life. Keep going. Roar. The Inferno Dragon wildly charged toward the dragon origin, pressing forward with indomitable will and determination. Bang. 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 The Inferno Dragon's soul was broken into pieces time after time, but it would return to life. The Inferno Dragon's soul had died dozens of times in the span of half a minute. On average, the Inferno Dragon's soul was being broken every second. Sometimes, the Inferno Dragon was just about to take a single step forward when it was suddenly ripped apart. The other purple blood dragons watched on indifferently, not taking any actions. Since the old star rank dragon was involved, their involvement would be considered disrespectful for the old dragon. Bang, bang, bang. The Inferno Dragon's soul alternated between life and death and kept on moving. Dozens of times, hundreds of times. The purple blood dragons were completely stunned into speechlessness as they witnessed the Inferno Dragon coming back to life hundreds of times. The old dragon was furious. That was a dirty trick. Go back. The old dragon growled as the Inferno Dragon was very close to the dragon origin. Zing. Space vibrated. The old dragon was going to turn back time, to make the Inferno Dragon go back where it started, and make all of its previous efforts futile. Soon, a glow was cast over the Inferno Dragon. Then it stepped forward, but it was actually moving back. It soon stopped where it had been brought back to life the last time. The old dragon could not believe that. It could not make the Inferno Dragon go back further. The time could only be rewound to where the Inferno Dragon had died the last time, but not any further. The time before that had been isolated and there was nothing the old dragon could do. That is not possible. The old dragon was in a daze. The dragon believed that Suping surely had used some artifact to bring himself and his pet back to life. Suping, who was not at the star rank, couldn't have done that. The dragon was sure of its judgment about Suping. It was highly unlikely that an artifact could outperform a dragon's skill. What could that artifact be? Something that could manipulate nature's rules? At that thought, the old dragon took its eyes off of the Inferno Dragon and instead started to focus on Suping. Since the old dragon had just ignored the Inferno Dragon, the latter had finally made its way into the lake. The dragon origin in the lake was pulled toward the Inferno Dragon, wrapping the pet with its power. The dragon origin was like a living organism, but at the same time, it wasn't a living, breathing thing. Just like the system had mentioned, the dragon origin cared about all dragons and didn't reject Suping's pet. Let me protect you this time. Suping gazed at the Inferno Dragon's soul as the dragon origin covered it and told it to rest at ease as its body was being reconstructed. The Inferno Dragon turned around to look at Suping before the dragon origin blotted its view. Soon after, Suping felt that the Inferno Dragon's consciousness had been locked up and their communication was cut off. Suping didn't try to force the communication, lest it would disturb his pet. The old dragon didn't mind the Inferno Dragon. A low-level dragon like that wouldn't use much of the dragon origin. Comparatively speaking, the thing that Suping used for revivals was of greater interest. You have worked so hard just to make your pet complete again. But I will kill it after it comes out, I will kill it again and I will eat it up right in front of you. The old dragon looked down at Suping from a height and uttered the cruel words. Suping's dirty reviving trick had filled the old dragon with rage. The old dragon was determined to make the human feel much more pain. Suping made his way to the dragon origin. The old dragon didn't stop him. Suping stood in front of the lake. He cast an affectionate gaze at the Inferno Dragon, which was within the embrace of the dragon origin, before he turned around and announced to the old dragon and the other purple blood dragons, "From this point on, I will not make any concessions. Now, show me what you've got." Suping sounded quite arrogant. The purple dragons were trying hard to hold back their urges of teaching that human a lesson. The old dragon squinted its eyes. "You can come back to life, but you don't have enough strength yet. I will freeze you up and take away your artifact. Let's see how you'll come back to life after that." Zing. As soon as the old dragon finished its words, a stream of unimaginable energy surged out and froze both time and space in front of Suping. That was not just space confinement. Even time had been stopped. Suping stood in front of the dragon origin, deadly still. He couldn't even blink. He couldn't even think. If the old dragon were to remove the energy, Suping's thoughts would still be as they were a second before. He might not even realize he had just been frozen on the spot. Bang. With a mental instruction, The white bones protecting Suping were ripped away. The old dragon brutally took them down one by one. Even pieces of flesh were attached to the white bones. The white bones floated in the air. All the white bones were removed. Suping was skinned, and that was a scene too terrifying for the eyes. The old dragon started to search for any trace of a treasure in Suping. The old dragon didn't ignore Suping's clothes, not even his shoes. And yet, to the dragon's astonishment, nothing turned out after a thorough search. Nothing. The old dragon thought of the possibility that Suping had hidden the artifact in another storage artifact, but there was nothing of that sort. The old dragon believed it would detect a trace because a storage artifact would have to use spatial strength. Such an artifact wouldn't have escaped its detection. The old dragon was full of questions. Nothing? Really? So, Suping didn't carry that artifact with him? But how could the artifact be used in that case? The old star-ranked dragon had never heard of such a thing. Not even after it had lived for tens of thousands of years. No way. No way. The old dragon violently tore Suping's body to pieces, going through its skin, bones, flesh, and searched every inch of it. Still, the old dragon found nothing. In a rage, the old dragon began to search Suping's soul. That was a transparent item. The old dragon seemed to be astounded by the soul. The strength of the soul was usually linked to the person's rank. Only a secret skill could have strengthened the soul. But it was evident that Suping's soul wasn't even at the legendary rank. It was merely at about the 9th rank. That was to say, Suping was merely at the 9th rank? The other purple blood dragons were also stunned, and felt they had received a slap on the face. The creature that had forced its way to the dragon origin was merely at the 9th rank. No wonder that creature would use an inferno dragon, a kind that didn't even have a legendary rank bloodline. It turned out that the human himself was at a low rank. But how could he have demonstrated such strength? After the initial moment of surprise, the old dragon recognized that the white bones belonged to a small skeleton. The skeleton kings had a bloodline just as noble as that of purple blood dragons, even more distinguished. The old dragon fumbled through the white bones. Still, the dragon found nothing. The old dragon was at a loss. However, the next second, those pieces of flesh disappeared and Suping came back. He had regained his life again. He had already died when the old dragon was searching his soul. His soul returned to the system, and of course, Suping chose to go back. The old dragon and the other purple blood dragons shocked into stillness. None of them expected that Suping could have revived after such a thorough death. They found nothing remotely linked to a revival artifact on Suping. Strange. Inconceivable. The old dragon was sure that there was something it was unaware of, some sort of secrets. Otherwise, how could a 9th-rank human come back to life time and time again? Not even the old dragon, which had the ability to manipulate time, could have revived itself when the death was that thorough. The old dragon stared at Suping. You said you were willing to trade if we allowed your dragon to take the dragon origin. Now tell me. How can you come back to life repeatedly? Suping knew that he had been killed once again. But he didn't feel that. As such, he understood that the dragon must have used the power of time. Suping chuckled sarcastically but soon adopted a cold look. I was honest when I was trying to negotiate with you, but you turned me down. You cannot kill me and you cannot figure out the reason, so it is only now that you think about asking me nicely. But you don't have the right to know. Suping's words of contempt enraged the purple blood dragons. You insect. Watch your mouth. Are you seeking doom? I will track your race down and kill every single one of them. How dare you insult our king? Don't you ever think that we cannot finish your life? The old star-rank dragon pulled a long face. There must be a limit, whatever skill or artifact you're wielding. You can come back to life hundreds of times, thousands of times, but can you do so for tens of thousands of times? I will keep on killing you non-stop. Is that so? Try me. Suping was bristling with anger. You are merely at the star rank. You're dragons, but you don't deserve to call others pathetic since you're not the best of dragons. I'm right here and I'm not going anywhere. You disdain me, right? Then come and kill me. I will fight the impossible fight against you. Suping's wild and arrogant words lingered at the mountaintop. Fight the impossible fight. Of course, the purple blood dragons were unhappy about it. Dragons should be the best of all creatures, and that mortal human had just belittled them. Unforgivable. Kill him. Kill him. The purple blood dragons angrily denounced. The old dragon once again wielded its time manipulation weapon. Suping was exterminated after a loud noise, so completely that not even a trace of him was left behind. Whoosh. The next second found Suping once again standing in front of the dragon, very much alive. Laughing out loud, Suping merged with the little skeleton which had died together with him, and charged toward the old dragon. Let's find out who will die first. Suping soared to the sky and waved the fist of Exorcist. Bang. The vibration in space stopped the punch and crushed Suping. Suping bounced back to life once more and had restored his peak state. Shouting, Suping carried on with the punch. The old dragon was agitated. Yet again, the dragon killed Suping. Bang. 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 That went on several times. Suping would be killed again as soon as he revived. But there was no limit to Suping's revivals. He had died 10 times, dozens of times, and then over 100 times. He would always be in his prime state after coming back to life each time. On the other hand, the old dragon was evidently losing momentum after striking Suping for more than 100 times. Being at the star rank didn't mean that it could use the energy of time indefinitely. Using that skill would constantly drain the dragon's strength. Boom. After yet another time of coming back to life, covered in white bones, Suping threw a punch at the old dragon. With a clouded face, the old dragon smashed Suping, breaking his bones. Still, Suping had managed to land the punch at the dragon's claw at that final moment. A piece of the scale was broken. As far as the old dragon was concerned, that punch gave it merely a little pain, as if it had just bumped into a piece of rock. However, the thought that a 9th-ranked creature had been able to hurt it filled the old dragon with rage. It cried into the sky, and that roar dispersed all the clouds. It was heard all across the mountain. All the purple blood dragons on the mountain as well as dragons of other kinds had heard the king's roar of fury. The dragons wondered about the reason behind that fury. Those dragons at the hillside were stunned to find that the human being was still alive. What could he have possibly done to enrage the king? On the mountaintop, after that shout of fury, the old dragon once again smashed Suping to pieces, and once again, Suping punched the old dragon. Bang. Same as before, Suping lost his life. This time, the pain was more obvious for the old dragon. After coming back to life, Suping merged with the little skeleton, and with a dash, he landed a punch on the old dragon's stomach. The ferocity of the punch cracked the scales. The pain infuriated the old dragon even more. After the continuous strikes, the old dragon had started to become tired. On the other hand, that human was not getting tired at all. He would be as ferocious as before each time he returned to life. The old dragon was getting bored of this, and it even started to be afraid. The human was like an annoying insect that would not die and rather, it would hurt the dragon every time. The old dragon had already vented his anger. It was no longer in the mood to strike again because it was exhausted. Suping was revived. He stood in front of the lake. He sneered at the old dragon. Suping merged with the little skeleton and stood by the lake, guarding the inferno dragon. As the old dragon stopped, the other purple blood dragons believed that it was their turn. Die, you bastard, die. The purple blood dragons began to manipulate space. Those dragons didn't resort to any destructive skills, for fear that they might hurt the dragon origin by which Suping stood. The dragons could only use skills to affect space and kill Suping with that. Try me. Suping shouted, his eyes glowing. He punched out. The space around him rippled and some strange chains reached him and pierced him through. He immediately returned to life, standing in front of the lake. He had to raise his head to meet the dragons' gazes, but the dragons had a feeling that he was the one looking down on them. Chapter 534 The Dragon Spike Killed a Human. The dragons took turns to try their claws at killing Suping. He didn't just stand there, letting the dragons hurt him. He would fight back with all his might every time. He carried with him an unyielding will. No matter how much weaker he was, and no matter how little hurt he could do to the purple blood dragons, he would fight back, with all his might. As a matter of fact, the old dragon could ignore Suping's strikes, but not the other purple blood dragons. Suping was a person that had the ability to kill the weaker ones at the fate state. His strikes were not without effect. Those purple blood dragons were experiencing sharp pain. You vermin. Why are you still coming back to life? Why? Die. Drop dead. The purple blood dragons carried on with their attacks. Their strikes were a way for them to vent their fury in the beginning, but they had gradually become mentally disturbed since Suping was still able to revive and hurt them. The minor injuries had developed into serious wounds. More importantly, the constant revivals had deprived the dragons of hope. It was a tiny human being, but he was a source of despair for the dragons. Some purple blood dragons decided that they could no longer take it. They wanted to seal Suping, which would stop him from coming back to life. They would freeze Suping for eternity until he naturally died of old age. He would not be able to revive by that point, not again. That proposal was agreed upon. The purple blood dragons thought there was a limit to Suping's revivals. They were worn out after such a long time fighting, physically and mentally. After all, they would have to use a great amount of power each time they struck. For example, it took a normal person vigorous punches to kill prey. The person would sweat and get tired after throwing hundreds of punches, but the prey could fight back every time. Not only would the person become tired, there would also be pain. Seal him. Banish him to the evil dragon ruins. After gaining approval from the old dragon of the star rank, the other purple blood dragons worked together and froze the space around Su Ping, then created many chains that trapped him inside. The accumulated strength of 8 purple blood dragons at the peak of the fate state completely immobilized Su Ping. The force field was still behind Su Ping, operating. The figures inside the force field were vague but intimidating. That old dragon had noticed Su Ping's force field and how odd it was. But after thinking that Su Ping was merely a puny human being, the old dragon decided to ignore it. While Su Ping was unable to move his body, he was able to work with his mind. Those purple blood dragons had finally decided to seal him, which was what he was worried about. He struggled but was unable to regain his freedom. I think it only works on my body, but not on the astral powers inside me. Su Ping noticed that. Maybe it was because he wasn't that much weaker than the purple blood dragons at the fate state. As such, they could merely stop him from moving around physically. Su Ping had an idea. Bang! All the astral powers inside the cell cores began to blast out. The surge of energy was more than he had ever experienced. Still, the chaotic and uncontrollable energy was running wild and he himself was the first to be destroyed. Bang! Su Ping's body was gone and so was his soul. Such a resolute suicide. Revive. Su Ping returned again and he was finally free. That was to say, the purple blood dragons would have to seal him again. The dragons were stunned, then they flew into a rage. Killing himself to escape. That was unacceptable. While he glared at them, Su Ping once again was standing in front of the dragon origin. The old dragon realized that the 8 purple blood dragons themselves were unable to stop Su Ping. The old dragon summoned up its strength and sealed off both space and time. That would mean that Su Ping's mind would no longer function and he would be unable to kill himself. Su Ping was soon immobilized. Go and get the dragon spike. We must destroy his astral powers. The old dragon announced. The purple blood dragons hated themselves for not thinking about it. Once Su Ping's powers were depleted, they would be able to do whatever they wanted with him. Su Ping would wish he were dead. They would have the freedom to torture him at will. Whoosh! One of the purple blood dragons flew away at once. Before long, the dragon came back, bringing 3 blood-red spears which were glistening brightly. The spears didn't seem to be made of metal but some sort of polished fangs. The dragon spikes. Let's send him. The purple blood dragons bellowed. Without hesitation, the dragon pierced Su Ping through with one of the spikes and nailed him on the ground in front of the lake. The blood-red spikes were quite thick. 3 would be needed if they wanted to nail a dragon. But considering how small Su Ping was, 1 would be sufficient. After Su Ping was impaled, the old dragon stopped freezing time and space. It would cost the dragon too much energy to continue that lock. Su Ping regained his mind the moment the old dragon stopped. The first sensation he felt was pain, a piercing pain in his chest. Su Ping saw that he had been impaled. He could not move at all while being nailed to the ground. The more appalling realization was that he was completely unable to feel his astral powers. What is this? Against the pain, Su Ping snarled. Seeing how Su Ping struggled amused the purple blood dragons. The one that was still holding the other 2 spikes sneered at Su Ping. No matter how powerful you are, there's nothing you can do now that you're pinned by the spike. We only use this punishment for the most sinful dragons. You're the first pitiful creature who can enjoy this in all of our history. Soak in the feeling. Consider this an honor for you. The purple blood dragons looked down on Su Ping, feeling pleased. They never imagined that one day they would be forced into such a state by such a pitiful being. What a shame. The old dragon glared at Su Ping, wishing to cut him into pieces. Well, that was not a wish. The old dragon had already done that. But cutting him into pieces had not been of any use. Su Ping tried to find traces of astral powers but failed in the endeavor. With a heavy mind, he tried to summon the dark dragon hound but he didn't even have the astral powers to do that. He was like a man of the common run. Su Ping endured the pain as he said to the purple blood dragons, "Is this how honorable you boast yourselves to be? You use this dirty trick to imprison an opponent that you cannot defeat. Don't you feel humiliated? Punk, do not try to provoke us again. Such a pathetic move. Do you honestly think we will fall for that? I will treat you so well that you'll wish you were dead." The purple blood dragons did fall prey to Su Ping's provocation. But indeed, Su Ping had pointed out a harsh fact. The purple blood dragons chose to ignore that provocation. No other dragon would know if they didn't speak of that day's humiliation. He felt a disturbance in his mind while he was thinking about a solution. He wanted to look over but was unable to, considering his state. The water rippled in the lake, and a large amount of dragon origin was swimming toward the Inferno dragon. Su Ping was able to tell that the Inferno dragon was coming back. The disturbance on the lake had also alerted the dragons. They flew into another wild fit of rage. "Stop it. Ah! You dirty thing. Stop it. What are you trying to do with so much dragon origin? The enraged purple blood dragons wanted to make the Inferno Dragon leave the lake. And yet, they couldn't find its current location. The Inferno Dragon was at the bottom of the lake as it rebuilt its body. The turbulence in space alerted the Inferno Dragon when the purple blood dragon struck, so the Inferno Dragon had moved away. Get out of here. The purple blood dragons were losing their minds. But this time, no matter how angry and agitated they were, they didn't strike. They could harm the dragon origin if they reached too deep inside. No more dragon origin would be generated if the harm was too grave. That would mean that the purple blood dragon race would end along with the depletion of the dragon origin. The old dragon stared at the tumbling water with a grave look. A swirl appeared in the water. The Inferno Dragon was at the center of the swirl and the dragon origin was surging toward it. The old dragon thought about trying to freeze time. But the special nature of the dragon origin dictated that it couldn't be frozen by time. The dragon origin continued to move toward the Inferno Dragon. The old dragon would only be able to stop the dragon origin to flow away after it killed the Inferno Dragon. Still, the old dragon had to be cautious, since the Inferno Dragon was inside the dragon origin. Go to hell. The old dragon struck after finding the right timing. It wielded a blade of time. Those below the star rank would not be able to foresee the arrival of such a blade. Surely the Inferno Dragon would be unable to detect it. The old dragon was careful. The blade was just strong enough to kill the Inferno Dragon and was not as sharp, to avoid hurting the dragon origin. Bang! It went without saying that the Inferno Dragon had died. Suping furiously brought the Inferno Dragon back to life. The Inferno Dragon was restored to the state it was at before dying. A new body was formed and it was different from before. Mixed with the dark red scales were some dark purple scales which were found on purple blood dragons. The Inferno Dragon regained its consciousness fully after coming back to life. It was a bit confused about the things that were happening. Instinct alone had told the Inferno Dragon to consume that delicious thing. The Inferno Dragon could then see how Suping had been impaled to the ground. The pet dragon was immediately incensed. Chapter 535 Repression. Suping cooled himself down once he saw the dragon climb to his aid. Don't come over. Go on and absorb the dragon origin. Destroy the rest if you can't take all of it. Suping was able to tell that the old dragon cared about the dragon origin deeply and it was being cautious. The old dragon didn't try to stop the flow of time to drag Inferno Dragon out from the lake. Suping had the feeling that he could tell the Inferno Dragon to plunder all of the dragon origin. He would make the purple blood dragons feel sorry. The Inferno Dragon stopped and stared at Suping. The determination in Suping's eyes told the Inferno Dragon what it needed to do. They had formed a special bond over time. The dragon immediately obeyed and threw itself back into the dragon origin. The water tumbled. The Inferno Dragon roared. This time, it wasn't a choice spurred by instinct, the Inferno Dragon chose to do so. The dragon origin was being constantly sucked into the Inferno Dragon. Make it stop. Damn you. Damn you. The purple blood dragons were losing their minds and so was the old dragon. Once again, the old dragon slashed the Inferno Dragon to death. Suping brought the Inferno Dragon back to life at once. The Inferno Dragon had thrown itself into absorbing the dragon origin again, even before Suping said anything. The old dragon furiously killed the Inferno Dragon again and again. But the Inferno Dragon had never truly died. The old, powerful dragon felt too vulnerable at the moment. The old dragon tried to reverse time again, but no matter how many times it tried, the Inferno Dragon would only go back to its previous death. There was a wall that stopped the old dragon from rewinding time any further. The old dragon had a feeling that the thing that stopped it wasn't merely a skill to reverse time, but some sort of nature's law. The old dragon abandoned its demeanor and cried, "Stop it. Make it stop." That cry echoed at the peak and shook the whole mountain. The dragons around the mountain heard the cry. The anger that the cry had expressed came as a shock to all the dragons. Our king hasn't vented its anger yet. Suping was feeling relieved as he saw how the Inferno Dragon continued to absorb the dragon origin. Its body was being constructed, and its strength was increasing rapidly, the more dragon origin it absorbed. Bang! Bang! The old dragon continued to wield the blade of time, but Suping had never stopped bringing the Inferno Dragon back to life. The Inferno Dragon would wake up and continue to absorb the dragon origin. The old dragon's efforts, all of it, were futile. Suping had to admit that the system was awesome. The revival ability had enabled him to challenge a creature at the star rank, a dragon no less, in that cultivation site. Tell your dragon to stop. The old dragon's emotions shifted from fury, to a sense of powerlessness, to despair and pain as the Inferno Dragon repeatedly returned to life. The old dragon put away its sorrow and stopped the strikes. I can let you leave. Tell your dragon to stop. The old dragon gazed at Suping. The old dragon adopted not a soft tone, it was outright begging. Suping could not help but laugh while still being impaled to the ground. Are you begging me? The old dragon felt its blood boil. Dragons were born to be irritable, not to mention when Suping's words hurt its heart. The old dragon had never felt so humiliated. A dragon at the star rank was begging a lowly being to stop. Some words didn't have to be explained. Did this human not know that? You fool. The old dragon bit its teeth. Even though unable to move, Suping's laugh became louder. I am a fool? You are the fool. You don't have the right to call me that. You will be too weak in my eyes when I reach the star rank. You are a dragon at the star rank, but you have thought too highly of yourself. The other dragons may not have your bloodline, but they are dragons nonetheless. If you think otherwise, then you shall not call yourself a dragon. Do you want to be impaled here forever? The old dragon threatened Suping. Suping was unable to stop his laughter. I can come here, so I can leave as well. You won't be able to stop me. You. The old dragon was hopping mad. Still, Suping's words weighed its mind down. The old dragon had only heard about creatures named humans from its ancestors and had never seen one before that day. It had been told that humans had long become extinct. There had not been a trace of humans left in that world. Where did this human come from? The human had such an odd revival ability. The old dragon was in agony. If Suping was speaking the truth, there was nothing it could do to him. But the purple blood dragons had been ruling that world for centuries. How could the old dragon accept the fact that a human had forced them into such a difficult position where it had to beg for mercy? You call me a lowlife, and a pathetic creature. You belittled my Inferno Dragon. I will let you see how the Inferno Dragon you all think so little of can easily wipe the lot of you when I come here again in the future. Suping didn't even try to sugarcoat his killing intent and resolution of revenge. He could leave at will since the Inferno Dragon was back. True, he had been impaled, but the system would send him back automatically when his time in the cultivation site was up. No amount of imprisonment could stop that. Or, once he exhausted his energy points and was unable to buy another chance of revival, he could choose to go back to the store. Either way, Suping had no fear. The old dragon shouted, "You have gone too far." It was kind of absurd. The mountain-like magnificent star-rank dragon was shouting about having gone too far to a human that was nailed to the ground, completely unable to move. The purple blood dragons felt their blood was boiling in humiliation. You gave me no chance to talk when you called me a lowly being. Now, you won't get a chance to talk about terms with me, either. Suping added coldly. In a fit of rage, the old dragon squeezed Suping to dust. Suping came back to life. Bang! The old dragon killed him again. After a dozen times, the old dragon had finished venting its anger. What the hell do you want to do? Suping offered no reply. Inside the lake, the Inferno Dragon was still sucking in the dragon origin and was becoming more like a purple blood dragon. The Inferno Dragon would carry part of the purple blood dragon's bloodline after this. The red and purple scales gave the Inferno Dragon quite a regal look. Roar! The Inferno Dragon stopped taking in the dragon origin. It was full. The Inferno Dragon was over 30 meters tall, higher than it was before. It was able to float above the lake without flapping its wings. Master! The Inferno Dragon called, gazing at Suping. Suping was amazed when he saw the new Inferno Dragon. He thought the Inferno Dragon was even more magnificent than the other purple blood dragons. It had more ferocity. System, is my Inferno Dragon completely safe and sound now? Just to be safe, Suping had to verify with the system because he had little experience in this regard. The system gave a brief answer. Yes. Suping was relieved. He called the Inferno Dragon back and darted one last look at the dragon origin. I will leave the dragon origin for you. Take good care of it. I'm leaving now. Do you have any objections? The old dragon and the purple blood dragons were losing their minds because of rage. The blood streaks in their eyes gave them a terrifying look. Leaving? I'm going to keep you under the mountain forever and you'll be under our feet. The old dragon bellowed. The purple blood dragon that was still holding the two spikes suddenly lost grip of one of them. The spike pierced through Suping. The pain made Suping frown, but he wasn't surprised. Suping neither cried nor shouted as he glared at the old dragon. Take him away. The old dragon snarled. All the purple blood dragons shared a deep hatred for Suping. Two of them immediately hurried over, froze Suping and carried him downhill. Suping was unable to do anything. He was checking the remaining energy points, though. He had no idea how many energy points he had spent on revivals. He merely had tens of thousands of energy points left. Suping felt lucky that the Inferno Dragon had managed to build a new body in time. Otherwise, he would have had to cut short their journey and go back when all the energy points were depleted. He would die for good if he forced himself to stay. If he would have had to cut the trip short, he would have to come back again. Now I have to wait for the time to end so I can go back. Suping saw that he had a dozen hours left. He didn't worry. He just had to endure the pain from the dragon spikes. Whoosh! The two purple blood dragons flew down the mountain. The no-flying rule didn't apply to them. The dragons gathered at the hillside recognized the two as the leaders of the purple blood dragons. Soon, the dragons also noticed that the two purple blood dragons were also carrying a small figure, the human from earlier. The dragons could not believe that Suping had been subdued with the dragon spikes. Why would they use the dragon spikes that were only intended for punishing dragon sinners on a human being? The dragons, to their astonishment, realized that the human was why their king was so furious. Whoosh! The two purple blood dragons took Suping directly to the foot of the mountain. Even more dragons were gathered there. The two purple blood dragons landed by the entrance of the mountain and their huge size and ferocity alerted the other dragons present. All the dragons knelt to salute their leaders when it came to dragonkind. It was demanded for them to kneel and snuggle their heads under their wings when they saluted their leaders. You will be here and be stomped upon by dragons for all eternity. One of the two purple blood dragons dug a huge pit, threw Suping inside and sealed Suping inside the pit with a square made out of void space. The square was transparent and those walking by were able to see Suping. The purple blood dragons meant to keep Suping there forever so that all dragons could step on him and humiliate him. Suping replied with a silent sneer. The purple blood dragons told some guards to walk over and keep an eye on Suping before they flew back to the mountaintop. Out of curiosity, the other dragons moved closer after the two left and looked at Suping through the transparent seal. The dragon spikes on Suping stunned all the dragons, making them flinch out of instinct. All dragons were afraid of them, no matter how powerful, any of them would lose all their abilities after being impaled by the dragon spikes. But why would that small creature be impaled? The dragons asked each other. On the other hand, Suping closed his eyes and waited for the time of his return. Chapter 536 Returning home. Half a day passed. Suping opened his eyes when the countdown clock appeared in his mind. The dragon onlookers that gathered outside the seal had gradually left. Some purple blood dragons would step over the seal Suping was in when they were going uphill. The purple blood dragon which was there to guard the seal sneered. It had learned from their leaders that the vermin had upset the higher-ups, so he would be kept in the seal till the last day of his life. What are you looking at now? Consider being stomped upon by us dragons an honor, said the purple blood dragon with arrogance. Suping looked at the dragon from the corner of his eye. Those arrogant words didn't faze him, he didn't have to get upset over an insignificant dragon. I must cultivate harder after I go back. I must reach the legendary rank as soon as possible. Suping planned about what he should do after his return. He was hardly able to gain the upper hand in the realm of purple blood dragons when he wasn't at the legendary rank. For the moment, he would avoid returning to that place. He had to focus on his life in the real world. The countdown had finally reached the 0 count. The purple blood dragon was still sneering at Suping when he began to flicker, and a dark swirl swallowed him whole. The prisoner had vanished. That sudden change of things had scared the purple blood dragon pale. The purple blood dragon hurried to check but failed to pick up any trace of Suping. It went immediately to report the escape. The old dragon at the star rank and the other purple blood dragons were checking the dragon origin on the mountaintop. To their dismay, they found that a great deal of the dragon origin had been lost. It was an amount that should have been enough to heal over 100 wounded void state dragons and help 10 dragons reach the legendary rank. That bastard. What a vermin. I cannot believe that vermin can use our dragon origin to reconstruct a body, not to mention that it received part of our bloodline. That vermin should be condemned. When that human dies, let's find that dragon and skin it. The purple blood dragons were furious. It was then when they learned about the disappearance of their prisoner. The two purple blood dragons that had carried Suping downhill were unable to believe it. They pierced the messenger dragon with their glares. What did you just say? Did he run off? He was impaled and robbed of all his strength, not to mention that I can find the space around him. How could he have possibly run off? The messenger had a gruesome feeling as it was stared at by the old dragon and the other dragon leaders. Truly frightened, the messenger answered with a trembling voice, My lords, I have been watching him carefully. That bastard suddenly began to flicker and something sucked him in. You fool. One of the purple blood dragons smashed the messenger's head. That messenger opened its eyes wide in fear and could not close its eyes before its head was crushed. The dragon died and a puff of soul floated out. A swirl leading to the realm of the dead appeared around the soul, trying to drag it inside. Sir, save me. It wasn't my fault. Get lost. You cannot even guard a petty human. What do we need you for? The swirl ate up the soul which was still begging and struggling, but the efforts were futile. I will go and take a look, said one of the dragons before it dashed down the mountaintop. I cannot believe that the human is gone. Shit. No wonder that human was so worry-free when he was here. He had other plans. But we had searched him more than thoroughly. He had no artifact that could produce such effects. What method did he employ? The other purple blood dragons talked in indignation. They had just imprisoned Suping half a day before, but he had already run off. It seemed that their threat of imprisoning him for the rest of his life had merely been a joke to him. The old star rank dragon was not happy at all. It remembered what Suping had mentioned, about how nothing would be able to stop him if he wanted to leave. The old dragon realized that Suping had to be telling the truth. Indeed, that was a creature full of mysteries. The old dragon believed that if it could dig out all those mysteries and make them its own, it would be invincible. Find him. Search the entire world. The old dragon ordered after a moment of silence. Suping had returned to his store while the entire realm of purple blood dragons was turned upside down. He reappeared in the pet room. He noticed that Joanna was staring at him as soon as he emerged. Confused, Suping looked down, only to see that his clothes had been torn into nothingness when he fought. He was standing there, utterly naked. The little skeleton was scattered around his feet as bone pieces. The dragon spike had sealed off all of his powers. The little skeleton had also been impaled as well, and had similarly lost all of its powers. Not even the actual skeleton king could have been immune to the dragon spike. This dragon spike. Suping stared at the huge, blood-red object lying in front of him. It was the dragon spike that was lodged in his chest. After his return, the dragon spike was pulled out from his chest. The system had cured all of his wounds, also taking out the dragon spike. Suping suddenly thought that his wound had not been for nothing. At the very least, he had picked up quite a powerful object. Suping placed the dragon spike in the storage space, then he dug out some clothes and got changed. So? What do you think? Anything appealing to your eyes? Suping asked Joanna. Joanna slowly looked away. There's nothing to see. You have nothing other than the body of a mortal being. I have seen more than enough of them. Suping replied, What are you talking about? I'm asking you about my clothes. Joanna looked away. Suping told the little skeleton, which was still lying on the ground, to take a rest in the nursing pen because the ground was too cold. The little skeleton didn't disagree. The scattered bones began to roll around headed to one of the nursing pens, where it stayed as a pile of bones. Suping was speechless. How lazy would the little skeleton have to be to worm its way back to the nursing pen without even standing up to walk back? Suping gazed at the little skeleton tenderly. It didn't die too many times in the battle. The little skeleton would revive on its own, unless it was attacked by the old star-ranked dragon, or the other purple blood dragons working. Suping had to admit that the little skeleton had become a very tough pet after gaining the bloodline of the Skeleton King. Not even a creature at the peak of the Fate State would have been able to kill the little skeleton easily. Suping gave one final look to the little skeleton and left the pet room. He pushed the door open and greeted Tang Ryuan and Zhong Lingtong. He went to the test room and summoned the Inferno Dragon. Boom. The Inferno Dragon landed in the test room. It was fortunate that the test room was spacious. Even a dragon that was over 1,000 meters long, like the old star-ranked dragon, could have fit in the room. As he stared at the Inferno Dragon that currently had part of the purple blood dragon's bloodline, Suping could almost sense the surge of profound energy in his pet. Suping supposed that the other dragons of the titled rank would be awed by the Inferno Dragon's might alone. They would kneel in front of this pet. Suping cast an identification spell on the Inferno Dragon. Inferno Dragon property, pet of the dragon family rank, the intermediate position of the 9th rank combat strength, 25 aptitude, above average talent skills, elementary agility talent bloodline skills, purple dragon's breath, bloody dragon soul abilities mastered, demon flame, dragon soul elegy, thunder roar, giant claw, evil bellow, dragon aura, dragon fission. Suping was impressed by all the skills. He didn't expect that the Inferno Dragon would also reach the intermediate position of the 9th rank, like the little skeleton, upon coming back to life. But compared to the little skeleton, the Inferno Dragon's combat strength was not as good, being at 25. It seemed that the bloodline the little skeleton had acquired was even purer. Chapter 537 Upgrading the store. The combat strength of 25 points should be that of the Void State. The Inferno Dragon also has the teleportation skill, which is a Void State skill. Suping was very glad about the Inferno Dragon's progress. Few people would believe him that his pet had Void State combat strength while still being at the 9th rank. I myself must make some progress. I'm still at the 7th rank and everyone believes that I am already at the titled rank. I must prove them right. Suping said to himself. But he didn't rush to cultivate. He had to find out more about the Inferno Dragon first. Suping didn't have to worry about the Inferno Dragon breaking the test room, so he ordered it to try out all the skills. Some of the legendary skills had amazed him. One of the Inferno Dragon's bloodline skills, the Purple Dragon's Breath, was quite horrifying. It had enough strength to burn and melt the air. One such breath could kill a creature below the Void State. After gaining a general idea of his pet's current status, he took the Inferno Dragon out from the test room and told it to have a rest in the nursing pen. In the meantime, Suping told Tang Ryuian to go across the street to the 5 major families and tell the family heads to stop by. Suping had used up almost all of the remaining 2 million energy points on revivals on that one visit to the realm of the purple blood dragons. He was in dire need to make more. The best way for him to cultivate was to go to a cultivation site when he went to train the customers' pets. That way, he could make money and progress faster. On top of that, he didn't have to worry about his cultivation going awry. On the off chance that something did happen, he could just start over by committing suicide. What an impeccable way to cultivate. Soon after, Tang Ryuian came back. The family heads weren't following her, the family elders went there instead. The government and the 5 major family heads were all as busy as bees to speed up the reconstruction process. The elders stayed across the street to keep an eye out on Suping's store, in case he would decide to sell Beast Kings again. They had to be there in time to buy such pets. "Mr. Su, what do you require from us?" "Nice to meet you, Mr. Su." The elders addressed Suping with respect. Suping had made a name for himself after the battle against the otherworld Heavenly King. The family elders no longer feared Suping like before, they began to hold him in awe and veneration. The family elders had also heard about Suping's deeds in the tower, as well as Qin Zhuang's decision. The Qin family understood that while their family head Qin Zhuang had reached the legendary rank, he didn't join the tower. From then on, the Qin family would always side with Suping. If the tower decided to go after the Qin family, they would have to turn to Suping for help. Suping went straight to the point. "I believe you're all quite aware of the pet training quality of my store. The war has just ended and many battle pet warriors are still dealing with grave matters. As such, they're not in the state to come and train their pets, which has affected my business. Go and tell whoever in your family needs to have pets trained to come to my store. I can train any pet below the Beast King rank." The family elders could not, for the life of them, anticipate that Suping was asking them for business opportunities. There were still wild beast corpses lying around outside the base city which was still mourning. Every line of business had been affected and the pet stores weren't immune to the influence. "I see. Mr. Su, you must want to help our young train their pets so that our families can recover faster. Mr. Su, how kind of you. We are beyond words." The family elders thought they had understood Suping's intention and they thanked him with strong emotions. How respectful of Suping. But Suping was speechless. "It's not only for the young people. You can come as well if you have such needs," Suping added. The family elders nodded. The elder from the Qin family was more excited than the others. "I've heard from Shuhai that the quality of the pet training is marvelous and one session of training can increase the pet's strength drastically. You can even train a pet so well that an ordinary one at the 9th rank can fight another at the peak of the 9th rank. Now that you have such needs, I don't think I have to ask my family head for permission. I have 4 9th rank pets. Mr. Su, can you train them? One of the pets is of the demon family." "Any pet will do," Suping answered. The elder immediately summoned his battle pets. The other family elders quickly stood in line and told Suping that they wanted their pets trained as well. Suping didn't let them down. He registered their information and at the same time, felt it was like a dream. Those family elders were all at the titled rank. Even though they weren't the most outstanding titled battle pet warriors, their pets were all at high ranks and they all chose professional training. A single pet's professional training could get Suping 100 million astral coins, that is 1 million energy points. The 5 family elders left 24 battle pets for Suping to train. After he accepted all of their orders, to his delight, he saw that the balance of his energy points had drastically increased to more than 24 million. Indeed, more than 20 million energy points. Suping asked Tang Ryuian to see the family elders out. Suping still found it hard to believe it as he stared at the balance of energy points. Making energy points used to be very hard for him. Even when his store was packed, he would merely make about 1 million per day, unless someone was generous enough to spend 100 million astral coins on professional training, but such customers would not come every day. After all, 100 million was not a small number. The family elders were wealthy enough to afford hundreds of millions easily. Also, they wouldn't want to go with general training considering Suping's reputation. All the family elders had chosen the expensive professional training and the cost for each pet would be 100 million. Suping was making energy points much faster than before. 24 million energy points. Upgrading the store to the 3rd level merely requires 10 million energy points. I can upgrade the store right now. For the first time, Suping was able to make some quick money. But it wasn't easy money. He had to train 24 battle pets and it was professional training all the way, which was a difficult task. If there were merely 1 or 2 battle pets, he could have asked Joanna to handle them. However, 24 was a large number. Suping believed he would have to get busy for quite some time. "I think I must make the training of advanced pets more well known to attract more titled battle pet warriors. That way, I can make money faster. I cannot make money quick enough just with the training of some low-rank pets, Suping said to himself. System, what are the benefits of the store's third level? Suping asked. The system answered, a third-level store will have a brand new platform on which pets for rent will be displayed. The system's shop will be upgraded to the third level as well, and there's a chance for more and rarer treasures and skills, even elementary divine skills. Suping was disappointed. Nothing else? The host will have access to advanced nursing pens. The host can spend some energy points and upgrade the nursing pens. With advanced nursing pens, there is a chance that a pet can pick up some talent skill, and the probability of the pet gaining an elementary talent skill is 10% and 0.01% for a middle-level talent skill, the system elaborated. Suping raised his eyebrows. Do you mean something like what my pets learned from the enlightening guide? Yes. Let's upgrade the store, then. Suping decided. He had to upgrade the store at some point, because if he didn't, he wouldn't be able to upgrade the incubation pool, either. If he could get some divine skills from the system's upgraded shop, he believed his strength would witness another increase. If lucky, the system's shop would be of much assistance in his search for strength. Requirements for upgrading the store. First, the real estate area connected to the store under the host's command reaches 100,000 square meters. Second, there are pets trained reaching above average in aptitude. Third, the host shall be at the 9th rank. The third requirement has not been fulfilled. Good luck to the host, the system added. Chapter 538 Training and Learning. Suping raised his eyebrows. Are you saying that I am the liability? The fact that upgrading the store had certain requirements about his rank came as a surprise to him. Although, there was another interpretation of this situation. He had to be too outstanding, since he had gained enough energy points to upgrade the store and had finished the task of aiding a pet's progress when he was merely at the 7th rank. Suping heaved a sigh and shook his head. You must have underestimated me, he expressed his disappointment at the system. The system. You must be over the moon to have me as your host, Suping added. Suping smiled a smug smile. He had one-upped the system that day. My dear, stupid system, you lack the experience of dealing with a poser. First warning, the system cautioned Suping at once. Suping chuckled and stopped that train of thought. He wouldn't grant the system the satisfaction of getting back at him. Suping started to browse through the list of pets and sorted them into different categories. Making sure that each pet's aptitude could become first-rate was complicated, and making a lot of money turned out to be a difficult task. Those pets' aptitude is quite low and some are downright poor. I'll have to make sure their combat strength can increase drastically to make sure that the pets can progress, or at the very least, I have to enlighten the pets first so that they can master the elementary agility skill. I wonder how much their aptitudes can improve with that talent skill. Suping categorized the pets and summoned them from the pet room group by group. The first 2 pets were dragons, but only average ones. Those dragons were more than common in the realm of purple blood dragons and would be viewed as unsavory food by the purple dragons. Suping placed his hands on the dragons' foreheads and started the enlightening process. There was no surprise. Both dragons were successfully enlightened and currently had the elementary agility talent skill. Suping checked their aptitudes. To his delight, both dragons' aptitudes had increased drastically. Indeed, talent skills are rare and powerful. The pets that can be enlightened are not unlucky ones. After all, the unlucky ones cannot even be enlightened. He had not done any other sorts of training with the 2 dragons, and yet the 2 dragons' aptitudes were approaching the average grading. Talent skills were clearly important. Also, with the addition of the elementary agility skill, those dragons' combat strength was raised to 9.9 points. The dragons' combat strengths were previously 9.4 and 9.5 respectively. Considering that they had been at the lower position of the 9th rank, such combat strengths were a little bit better than their rank's average and should be considered common among dragons. Of course, even to raise battle pets to the expected average was already hard work for many battle pet warriors. After all, sometimes, if the training wasn't up to standard, the battle pets could have combat strength that wouldn't even match their ranks. That wasn't rare. For example, it was common for your kid to have trouble passing an exam when everyone else's kid did fine. Training pets was a delicate job. Some might suffer from malnutrition and have a weak constitution if the master wasn't able to take good care of them. There were also occasions when the pets would eat randomly because their masters were away and they could become weak after getting sick, often because of eating strange herbs. Even pets of higher ranks could lose their combat strength. Not all the Tibetan Mastiffs were able to defeat stray dogs. Suping didn't know if the 2 dragons were at the beginning or approaching the end of the 9.9 grading, because there were many more digits behind that decimal point. Either way, Suping was glad about the aptitude improvement. He was able to tell that the enlightening guide was important. Things would be even better if he had the middle level, instead of elementary agility skill. He could imagine what the middle-level agility skill could do when the elementary effect was already stunning. That progress speed was much faster than using other known secret skills. When two pets had similar combat strength but one of them had elementary agility skills, the latter would be able to move 2 times faster as the former and would be able to eliminate the former before it even had time to react. Suping had the 2 dragons go back and called out the other pets to enlighten them. Those customers' pets had benefited immensely with that way of training. Of course, he wasn't losing anything, he just had to move his hands. Also, once he finished the professional training, the pets would be at their peak state. Their masters would have to go to his store if they wanted to better their pets after that. No other store could help their pets progress beyond that point. That was how he developed loyalty in his customers and gained a monopoly. Soon after, Suping had enlightened all 24 battle pets. Most of those pets had inferior aptitude and several already had an average aptitude. The latter would be the ones that were already trained well. Suping categorized the battle pets once more. He would take the battle pets into cultivation sites group by group. There were demons, dragons, and pets of various element families. Few battle pets had nothing but bronze. Those such battle pets usually had strong defense, but compared to pets of the element families, the former's skills were neither practical nor aesthetic. That was why battle pets that only had brute force were usually the choices of poorer people. The first group of pets Suping was going to train was the one of a demon family. There were 7 of them in total, and none of them were among the most powerful. The strongest of the 7 ranked number 7 of all the demon pets. Suping was at the 7th rank, but his spirit had been refined enough times for him to host 9 pets at one time. He already had 5 pets of his own. He could sign temporary contracts with 4 extra pets for the next trip to the cultivation site. That was to say, he would have to take 2 trips to train the 7 pets. Suping didn't go to the demigod burial this time. He chose a cultivation site suitable for pets of the demon family. There were multiple cultivation sites suitable for those pets, like various realms of the undead or that of demons, similar to the realms of dragons. Why are there so many different realms? I thought we lived in one world, Suping asked the system. It took a while before the system broke the silence and answered. There was once one world, but that was at the beginning of time. However, the world broke into different pieces. What was the cause of that? Suping inquired. The system didn't answer. Suping waited for a while, but he didn't hear anything back from the system. Suping called the system again, but to no avail. He stopped wondering. He knew that finding out the answer wouldn't do him any good. That was a world too far away from him. Suping took a pick. Then, I will choose the Ashura City of Sinful Swords. That was a middle-rank cultivation site, and the introduction told him that an Ashura King of Swords was the ruler of that realm. Suping didn't forget to aim at bettering himself in that cultivation site, aside from training those pets. It would be nice if I could find the Ashura King of Swords there and learn some sword skill from him, Suping said to himself. The introduction said that the Ashura King of Swords had mastered peerless sword skills, which interested Suping greatly. Even though he preferred to use his fists, which were simple and brutal enough, he believed that it was good to learn something about other skills and weapons. Skills would never be a burden. He paid the admission fee after he decided. He bought 4 temporary contracts from the system's shop at a cost of 40 energy points, then signed the contracts with the first batch of pets and hurried toward his destination. The Ashura City of Sinful Swords. The name was not wrong. It was indeed a city, the heart of the world. The city was ancient and desolate. Outside the settlement was a wasteland where few lives could be found. Inside the ancient city roamed a small number of skeletons, and that was all. The highest point of the city was a platform, where a dark, giant sword stood. Sitting in front of the sword was a huge figure, exuding a horrible aura that actually swallowed light, and there was a horn on the head of the figure, but the rest of his extremities were broken. Suping summoned all 9 pets as soon as he was teleported there, which were his own battle pets and the 4 pets from his customers. He fought on the empty streets of the city, and struggled all the way. Suping came to the heights point in the city after he was accidentally attacked and killed 7 or 8 times the platform. There were no other undead creatures there, not even evil ghosts. Suping saw the burly figure sitting in front of the giant sword. He recognized the figure's species at a glance. The figure's momentum was extremely strong, definitely not of the legendary rank, but the star rank. It was more terrifying than the old dragon he had seen in the realm of the purple blood dragons. The figure was ready to strike at any time. The next second, Suping saw that figure open his eyes. Suping felt a tingling pain in his eyes the moment they made eye contact. Suping went straight to the point. I came here bearing no ill will. I am here to learn sword skills. Chapter 539 Ashura King. Bang. The sword light lacerated the air and reached towards Suping before he could finish speaking. The sword light was traveling so fast that it seemed to be free from the boundaries of time and space. Su Ping couldn't feel anything before he found himself standing in the darkness, waiting to be revived. It went without saying that the guy had slain him. Seriously? Whoosh. Su Ping returned to life on the spot. He saw a slight twitch on the rigid face of that figure. It was evident that the system's might had once again been a source of astonishment. Ignorant. Su Ping grinned. He tried to sound sophisticated. Sir, I have stated that I came here bearing no ill will. I am merely here seeking to learn skills to wield the sword. Fear not, I wouldn't learn from you for free. You can express your wishes and I certainly will do everything within my power to grant them. That creature gazed at Su Ping with a pair of blood-red eyes that conveyed calmness and a glint of sharpness, seemingly able to pierce into Su Ping's mind. After a long while, the creature uttered a question. Human, where are you from? Surprised, Su Ping blurted out a question that even himself found odd. You know that I'm a human? He was surprised because the dragons had mostly been unaware of his race in the realm of purple blood dragons. Only a few dragons at the Fate State had recognized that he was a human being. All that Su Ping was able to see were ghosts and demons in that city. It went without saying that he was the only human present. Humans should be long gone. There weren't any human survivors, the creature went on. Su Ping was speechless. Humans had been extinct in the realm of purple blood dragons, and were also extinct in that Ashura city. It seemed that humans were indeed too weak in the realms of other species. Su Ping replied, I will be straight with you, since you can tell that I'm a human. I come from another realm, another plane. As for my intention of coming here, as I said, I am here to learn some sword skills from you. You don't want to waste energy on killing me or imprisoning me, or trying to find out what secrets are hidden within me. Such efforts will all be futile. Can we please get along? The creature remained silent, merely gazing upon Su Ping, wondering if he was telling the truth. After a long while, the creature responded, I don't detect any aura of this place from you. You're a human and yet you seek to learn sword skills from me. Never mind. I will teach you. But I'm not sure how much you can learn. Su Ping was surprised that the creature had agreed that easily. What about the ferocity and cruelty of Ashura creatures like him? Are you sure? Lying is beneath me, the creature commented calmly. Su Ping was just thinking that he would have to die over a dozen times before the creature realized that he couldn't end Su Ping's life, until it decided to have a nice talk. The creature turned out to be more understanding than expected. Good. I'm grateful that I can learn from you. My name is Su Ping. Now that I'm a student, I should call you teacher. Sir. I wonder, how should I address you? Su Ping asked politely. Since the creature decided to treat him with respect, he was going to return the favor. The creature answered after some thought, call me Dusk. I have one condition before I can teach you. Since you can come here, I suppose you can visit other worlds and realms. If you can, I hope you can find a god for me. To find someone? No, to find a god? I can promise you that, Su Ping answered. Can you give me a description of the god you're searching for? A description of the god's appearance won't do. The creature's eyes seemed to be glowing after Su Ping agreed to the terms. He lifted his grayish hand and lying in his palm was a green ring on which some clothes had been wrapped. The clothes were of uncommon fiber for they were giving out a glow. Her name is Kanayu, Shen Kanayu. Dusk stared at the green ring in his hand with affection. The aura on this ring belonged to her and she looks like this. With that said, a mass of darkness appeared in front of Dusk and the mist gradually changed into a fair lady wearing green. The fair lady was imbued in holy light and her beauty was impeccable. Su Ping had only seen such a perfect look on Joanna. Both ladies seemed as if they had been carved out of jade. The difference was that Joanna was more arrogant, while this fair lady was gentler. Su Ping committed that look and aura to memory. He nodded. I will try and track her down for you in the realms of the gods. But I cannot promise you speedy results. After all, there are many realms where gods reside, and to find a particular god is like finding a needle in a haystack. However, I can promise you this. If I find her, I will tell her that you are looking for her. Su Ping sounded serious and Dusk nodded. The former sharpness in his eyes had vanished. It's okay. I can wait. I've been waiting for her for 100,000 years. I changed myself from a demigod to this form, just to wait for her. I can wait some more. 100,000 years? Su Ping was shocked by the number. A human being at the Fate Realm could only prolong his or her life to about 10,000 years, and would have to rely on some mysterious herbs. 100,000 years was too long a time, and too distant in the ancient past. Su Ping was unable to believe that the creature was a degraded being that used to be a demigod. No wonder he knew a goddess. No offense, but I can't help being curious. What is your relationship with that goddess? Siblings? Su Ping asked. He thought of a girl who was always arguing with him. Dusk answered, you can say that she is my master. She is a pure blood god who can sign contracts with demigods to make them pets. Anyway, find her for me, if you can. Tell her that Dusk has been waiting for her here. She will know which place I'm talking about. Suping didn't expect that the goddess was the creature's master. Did he wait for his master for 100,000 years? Suping suddenly felt a surge of sadness. You have my word. I will try my best to find her for you. Dusk replied, I shall start teaching you sword skills from this moment on, then. What made you think you could come here to learn sword skills? Who told you I was good with swords? Suping couldn't have said that the system had told him that. He just made out the reply, it's a complicated matter. Well, I've promised you that I'll try my best. I do hope you can do the same. Dusk cast another glance at Suping but didn't press the latter for a more specific answer. He pocketed the green ring and stood up. My way of wielding the sword is quite aggressive. Bloodthirst and violence have been integrated with the way I fight, after fighting here for years. One shall never learn that way if there's a lack of a strong will, determination and profound killing intent. Do you understand? Suping smiled. Of course. So, let's see if you can survive this. Dusk announced. A dark sword had appeared in Dusk's hand before Suping could ready himself. He approached Suping instantly. The wind stirred up by that move had blown away the dust around Suping, and even his hair had been blown back. Die. Dusk gave Suping a ghastly stare. The light of the sword was shining in all radiance. At that moment, Suping could have sworn he was hearing ghosts crying and screaming. The tides of darkness were smashing down him and the ghosts were grabbing him. He felt as if he had been left in the world all by himself. One move and ghosts cried. Suping's heart skipped a beat, but he soon adjusted himself. Killing intent rose from his eyes and a force field appeared behind him. Ghosts and demons were dancing around in the ocean of blood. His killing intent was not any weaker than that of Dusk. Interesting. Dusk was surprised. Such pungent killing intent. Also, look at the force field view. It's a living hell. There's a living hell in the mind of this human. What has he gone through? Whoosh. The dark sword was swept over by Suping's hair. The darkness receded and the black sword was sheathed. Dusk looked at Suping. A moment later, he shook his head in self-mockery and said, I would have killed you directly 100,000 years ago. But I don't think I'm any better than you. You're qualified to learn from me. Suping cooled himself down and killing intent ebbed away from his face. He was very proficient in controlling his killing intent by that point. The force field disappeared. Suping was able to understand what Dusk was referring to. 100,000 years before, Dusk used to be a demigod. One of his kind would naturally end the life of someone that vicious. I may have violence in my heart but I've never killed an innocent. Suping chuckled. He wasn't defending himself. It was more like a self-affirmation, or telling this to the fate manipulating him, a force he was unable to see. Dusk nodded. He didn't mean to probe further. I will teach you a skill called Sin Cutter. It bears such a name but the skill itself is the most sinister. It is best learned in a harsh environment. Be ready. Sure. Suping nodded. Without further ado, Dusk began the lesson. First, Dusk explained the principles of the skill and then passed on the skill's methodology directly to Suping's mind. Suping didn't resist. He wasn't afraid, he could not die in that realm, and even if Dusk were to search his memory while he did so, he wouldn't mind. Dusk would not threaten Suping in any way, even if he were able to see the existence of the system. The system was linked to Suping. When his time in the cultivation site ended, Suping would go back to the store. Dusk would have to stay in that realm, no matter how eager he was to know more about those secrets. Dusk didn't try searching Suping's memories. Dusk took Suping to the city after passing him the method and began teaching through practice. Suping progressed rapidly, thanks to the revivals. He was a smart man, so he was soon able to gain a fundamental idea. His understanding of swords was deepened. Time flew. Suping had stayed in the city for 8 days. He would train his sword skills with Dusk every day and many skeletons and ghosts in the city had become his sparring partners. Dusk had a complete knowledge of where the most powerful beings in the city were gathered. Dusk would progressively take him to the most powerful beings to fight against them, which had further facilitated Suping's growth. He had known next to nothing about swords before that visit. At the moment he had already become an expert to a certain degree. Of course, he didn't forget about the pet training during that time. He had summoned all of his pets. Dusk had recognized the Skeleton King's bloodline the moment he had seen the little skeleton. As for the 4 pets of the demon family, that city was the perfect environment for their training. Suping asked Dusk to help him set up the training for the pets. As a result, they had trained as hard as Suping during those 8 days. The pets' potentials were being unleashed to the fullest extent due to the repeated deaths. Suping would go back in 2 more days. During the last 2 days, same as before, Suping practiced the sword with Dusk while the little skeleton took the pets to continue their training. It was able to improve as well through this method. However, the little skeleton's progress was limited in that cultivation site was limited. Only the undead aura could be of any help to this pet. 10 days passed. Suping returned to his store. His customers' pets' aptitudes had risen to an above-average grade, but they weren't first-rate yet. Suping was not surprised. After all, he had been focusing on himself during the past 10 days. He had many pets in his store for professional training and he didn't plan on finishing the training of all the pets within a couple of days. So, he chose to return to the cultivation site with the 4 pets of the demon family again, right after arriving at the store. Suping went to see Dusk and his appearance surprised him, since he had witnessed how Suping had been teleported away. Suping did this to show Dusk that he wasn't lying. Dusk was clearly friendlier as he gazed at Suping. "Sir, I am here again to see you." Suping had finally reached the platform after a couple of revivals. Dusk gazed at Suping. "Are you here to practice the sword again?" "Yes. You have mastered the fundamentals of the Sin Cutter but you cannot unleash its full strength yet. You lack some demonic energy in you," Dusk pointed out. Suping nodded in agreement. He had always felt something was missing when he was using the skill. "You will need some of that energy if you want to learn it in full," Dusk continued. "There was once an Ashura king in the city and I made myself an Ashura by taking his flesh and blood. I have some of that blood left. You'll have to drink the blood if you wish to complete the learning of that skill." Suping paused for 1 second before he answered, "No problem." The fact that Suping had answered so readily came as a surprise to Dusk. With a frown, Dusk cautioned Suping, "Don't get ahead of yourself. Once you drink the blood, you'll surely be able to master the skill but you'll have some energy of the Ashura species within you. You can be exposed when you go to a god realm. Even the creatures of the world you're from will resist you." Suping looked into Dusk's eyes. "Sir, you have those concerns but you still told me that." "Sir, I believe you hope that I can take the blood." Dusk was taken aback. After a moment of silence, Dusk answered, "You'll make the decision. You will alert the gods if you carry the Ashura energy and go to one of their realms. I think that'll help you find the one I'm looking for even faster. You're not afraid of death, after all, so alerting the gods is nothing for you." Suping spent some time deliberating. "I'll take the blood." Dusk felt necessary to ask again, "Have you thought it through?" "Yes." Suping nodded. Just then, Suping was asking the system if there could be any side effects after drinking the blood. The system presented Suping with a pleasant surprise. According to its answer, the Ashura race was from the Archean times and the blood of the Ashura king could become a nutrient to the solar bulwark. Suping would be able to hide the Ashura energy inside the solar bulwark and the gods would be unable to detect it. "Okay." A dark earthen bowl appeared in Dusk's hand and within was some dark liquid with a pungent smell. "This is the blood," said Dusk. Suping felt that the liquid was more like ink. Suping took the bowl without hesitation. He was able to tell that Dusk had been holding the bowl tightly when he made a grab for it. Dusk had let go of the bowl in the end. Suping then drank the blood. There was a foul taste in his mouth. The cold blood turned warm inside him, until it was burning and spreading all across his body. He felt he was on fire. The pain made Suping scream. Bang! The bowl fell to the ground. Suping was scratching his hair. His eyes turned red and were jittering oddly. The pain almost drove Suping crazy. "Ah!" Suping shouted. Something seemed to have been alerted inside of Suping and the burning sensation was quickly defeated. Suping gradually came back to his senses. He was able to endure the pain as it gradually receded. The popping veins on his face began to withdraw and he cooled down. But he was paler than before. Suping opened his eyes which had recovered, but there was a trace of crimson color buried deep inside them. Phew! Suping breathed in relief. The pain was going away and strength was rising in him. He could not tell why but he was feeling comfortable. The vortexes in his cell cores were being filled up. How? Dusk was surprised about the unexpected change. Suping seemed to carry some Ashura energy but it wasn't pure. Is it because Suping didn't take enough blood? Suping turned his hands and a red sword appeared. He got the sword when he was training in the city after he killed a Fate State demon. He had to rely on his revivals to kill it. Whoosh! Suping wielded the red sword, a surge of energy burst out from him. There seemed to be a shadow behind him. When he wielded the sword, so did the shadow. The void trembled. The air was cut open. The light of the sword flashed away. Suping put down the sword with delight. What a powerful move. That should be the true force of the Sin Cutter. One cut to crack the air. He had not even merged with the little skeleton yet. He had achieved that by himself. To be able to cut the air meant the strength of that move was close to the void state. Chapter 540 Hancheng Base City. You have completed your study of the Sin Cutter skill. Staring at the cracked space, Dusk said, You are merely at the first level and need more practice. However, I have detected something strange in you, something that should belong to a god. Su Ping didn't deny it. Dusk must have sensed when the solar bulwark was absorbing the blood just then. Thank you, sir, said Su Ping. Dusk shook his head. I agreed to teach you sword skills because I only saw demons, undead creatures, and ghosts here for such a long time. Your presence is a weird thing. I've taught you my skill, so I hope you can deliver your promise. Su Ping nodded. I will spare no pains in finding that goddess for you. Dusk nodded. He thought of something and took out a long case. You can have this sword since you've learned the skill. I have one myself. I have no use for it, given that I don't practice the use of two swords at the same time. Dusk handed the case to Su Ping. Su Ping immediately accepted it. The case was heavy and cold, as if it were made of ice. He opened the case right then. Lying in the case was a dark sword with a curved back, a cold glare was bouncing off from the sword. The crimson gemstones embedded on the handle stood out against the darkness. Su Ping grabbed the handle, and immediately felt something was pulling his hand. It was as if the sword were going to merge with his hand. It was a spooky feeling. Although surprised, Su Ping didn't let go. He wasn't afraid of death in that place. He took out the sword and poured in his energy. The white bandage on the handle came to life and reached for his hand. It became even redder, and it tied his hand with the handle so tightly that he couldn't even shake the sword off. There was a wicked and cold feeling at the same time. It crept into him through his hand, searching for the energy inside him and seeking to devour it. Su Ping tried to suppress the wicked energy with his astral powers, but they were swallowed at once. The next second, Su Ping saw a dark glow rise from the blade. The air cracked where the dark glow shone. The blade itself had cracked the space. Su Ping was surprised. This must be an amazing sword. Are you sure I can have it? Su Ping asked. Su Ping felt flattered. After all, he and Dusk had only known each other for merely a dozen days and they had yet to forge a deep relationship. Dusk had also taught him the skill. Su Ping felt this gesture was a little bit too much. You will have enough strength to compete against those at the Fate State with this sword, and you'll be able to kill them easily while working with your pet. Your only true foes will only be those at the star rank and above. At the very least, this will ensure that you remain peerless below the star rank, Dusk explained. Su Ping looked into his eyes. Remember our agreement, Dusk stated. Su Ping nodded. I won't forget. In the following 10 days, Su Ping continued to practice his sword skill in the city, under Dusk's guidance. He progressed by leaps and bounds. He had set aside more time to train the pets this time around. He was able to ensure that his customers' pets would gain formidable skills. The professional training of the 4 pets was completed and their respective combat strengths had increased beyond the 10-point mark. The best of the 4 pets already had a combat strength of 15 points, close to an Ocean State Beast King. Once he returned to his store, he gathered the other pets of the demon family and returned to Ashura City. Time moved on. Su Ping knew that it was time to say goodbye to the city after the second group of demon pets had finished their training. He went to bid farewell to Dusk. Dusk was not sorry to see that Su Ping had to leave. Rather, he hoped Su Ping would finish training as early as possible to go and find the goddess for him. Their goodbye was a brief one. Dusk watched as Su Ping took off. Sadness climbed into Dusk's eyes as Su Ping was sucked into the swirl and disappeared. I hope you remember our agreement. I hope you're still alive. And find this place. Dusk looked at his hand. His skin was colorless and dried. Even an Ashura cannot live forever. Did the destiny that my father spoke of leave? Dusk's murmurs vanished. Silence prevailed on the platform, and the entire city which had turned deadly still again. Back in the store, Su Ping left the trained pets and then picked out dragons for the next training rounds. He didn't choose to go to the realm of purple blood dragons, it was another dragon realm. The purpose of his trip was to train the pets, not to seek fights. If the star-rank dragon detected his appearance in the realm of purple blood dragons, it would surely send out Fate State dragons to hunt him down. This would deprive him of the time needed to train the pets. He also claimed he would return to that dragon realm when the Inferno dragon became more powerful than the purple blood dragons. The time had not come yet. Su Ping chose another dragon realm and resumed his pet training the journey. While Su Ping was busy going about his pet training business, war was raging in the Hansheng base city. The windmills and other pieces of infrastructure outside the base city had been destroyed. Wild beasts abounded. Blood had tainted the city wall. There were piles of corpses by the foot of the wall. The city was in a state of emergency. We need help on the north side. There are 16 wild beasts at the 9th rank. We're losing the north side. Emergency on the east side. We have beast kings heading to the east. 2 beast kings on the east. Help. Help. Why aren't there any reinforcements? Were we abandoned? The commanding center inside the Hansheng base city was receiving a swamp of calls asking for help. People sounded desperate. There were wild beasts outside, and the base city was on the verge of collapsing. But no more battle pet warriors were joining in the fight. The defense was weakening. Hopeless. The guards and the Zhuan family which was guarding the east side had abandoned hope when two beast kings showed up among the wild beasts attacking the east side. They had received no information about the likely arrival of beast kings. The beast kings had been hiding, only showing themselves at this critical moment. To make matters worse, no one had heard anything about any legendary battle pet warriors going to help. The government wouldn't have hidden the presence of any legendary battle pet warriors, because that would be news that could give hope to the people. They were just glad that they hadn't been fed with any fake information of any legendary battle pet warriors going to their aid when no one was. There were no legendary battle pet warriors, but there were beast kings. The warriors and the generals' faces and hearts were clouded. Given its status as a Class B base city, Hancheng didn't have the ability to fight against beast kings. Many battle pet warriors, including titled ones, had arrived from other base cities to lend a hand. Still, that was still not enough when beast kings were striking. The news that beast kings were approaching the east side had stunned the entire commanding center into silence. All the people who were hurrying to and fro stopped in their tracks. Beast kings? People could see the shared feeling of despair in everyone's eyes. Why? Why? We're fighting so hard. Why did this have to happen to us? Did God wish for the Hancheng base city to perish? People turned their eyes to the mayor. The mayor was just as pale as anyone else. He held a file in his trembling hands. He was sure they had not received fake information. He also knew that no legendary battle pet warrior from the tower would be helping them. He had been told that the tower was in a state of emergency and no one was able to spare any time to help. The mayor could neither think, nor see. The mayor had been running around and asking for help during the past week. He had begged in all manners he could think of, barely taking any rest for a week. That piece of bad news had almost rendered him unconscious. Bang! He slumped in his chair, utterly desperate. He thought of something. He discarded his sadness, stood up, and shouted, "Let's move all the backup warriors and materials to the east. Send someone to escort the civilians out of the base city from the south. Since the beast kings are coming from the east, let's deal with them on the east side." The others were shocked by the order. One of the generals said, "Sir, we have sent out all the spare hands to the battlefront. We only have the recruits of the reservoir service." The other added, "About evacuating. The passageways had been destroyed by the wild beasts. We would have to spend some effort in clearing them. We may encounter more wild beasts in the process." "Sir, are you sure about the evacuation?" They had not evacuated for that very reason. The mayor turned even paler. "No more backup forces? Is this the end of the Hancheng base city?" It seemed that the old major had lost all of his vigor in that second, which saddened everyone. Right then, another piece of information arrived. "It's about the east side. There's a third beast king, but this one is going after the other two beast kings. The third one is fighting the two already. Someone came to help. I see a person standing on that beast king. We have reinforcements. We have reinforcements." The person who called in to report sounded excited, happy enough to weep. They had been saved from hell. Chapter 541 Recovery Reinforcements? Beast King? Has a legendary battle pet warrior arrived? Inside the commanding center, people looked at each other in speechless astonishment, seeing the joy in each other's eyes. A legendary battle pet warrior had arrived to help them. The Hancheng base city could be saved after all. The mayor could hardly believe this. He was confused. He remembered that the tower had turned down his request for help. Had some legendary battle pet warrior found the time to go there and offer a helping hand? "Let's go and welcome the legendary battle pet warrior," the mayor said at once. Either way, the Hancheng base city would be safe with the support of a legendary battle pet warrior. He would be able to fend off two beast kings, or everyone could step in to offer assistance if it was too much. The mayor told some to stay in command and took the rest with him and headed east to welcome the legendary battle pet warrior. On the east side, gunfire rumbled. Many battle pet warriors were outside the city, fighting the wild beasts, together with their battle pets. The ground was shaking. 3 beast kings were fighting in close quarters. The previous wild beast formation was disrupted and they were slowed down. The combat between the 3 beast kings was intense. They unleashed many legendary rank skills, tearing up the ground, breathing out fire and causing chaos by accidentally killing the wild beasts around them. Roar! The bellows and howls lingered in the battleground. The crocodile was savagely striking one of the wild beast kings, regardless of the attacks dealt by the other wild beast king on the city wall. The previously despondent battle pet warriors were crying tears of joy. Some battle pet warriors who were volunteering from other base cities were surprised to see the crocodile. They recognized that the beast king looked familiar. "This is the beast king we saw in the Longjiang base city, right?" Isn't it the right of the Fate Challenger, who had killed a legendary battle pet warrior in the Supremacy League? Right then, the tie between the three Beast Kings was broken. The crocodile had heavily mauled one of the two wild Beast Kings. The latter was trying to escape while another Beast King was attempting to slow down the crocodile. The crocodile had two opponents but was gaining the upper hand, which had become the source of hope for many. Soon, the mayor and his generals had arrived. They climbed to the city wall and observed. Someone immediately approached the mayor and reported the current situation. To their relief, the crocodile was a Beast King on their side. He was surprised that the legendary battle pet warrior's single Beast King could have taken care of two wild Beast Kings. How terrifying. Whoosh! A person flew over to the city wall. The mayor recognized the person, much to his astonishment. The mayor hurried over. Venerable the Blade, what a pleasant surprise. Thank you so much for coming over to help.